5, 4, 3.
Good evening and welcome to the May 14, 2024 Planning and Zoning meeting. We have roll call, please.
Messina.
Here.
Ingalls. Fleming.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Luttrop.
Here.
McCracken.
Here.
Coppice.
Here.
Thank you. And join me for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me? You good? Okay. Need approval of the April 9th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes? Go ahead.
I move approval.
I'll
I
second.
got a first and I got a second. First by Ward, second by Copus. All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, public comment can be heard, and that's anything that isn't on the agenda tonight. So if anyone wants to speak on any other items, come on up. If not, okay. Staff comments. Hillary?
Right. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good
So just
evening.
wanted to give you a quick report on the June meeting. So June 11th will be your regular meeting, and there will be 3 public hearings that evening. So kind of a variety of planned unit developments. There's a special use permit for a density increase and a subdivision PUD combination.
Okay, great. Commission comments. Not hearing any, moving on. Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing on the first item. I just want to mention, there is a sign-up sheet. The item that the applicant has requested to be continued to July 9th, 2024, that was a proposed nine-lot subdivision, S-1-24. So that's going to be continued. So if you're here to speak on that, we're not going to be hearing that tonight. But I do need a motion from the commissioners to, I got a first motion by Copus,
Second.
and I got a second by
Fleming. Fleming.
Fleming. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next item is SP 1-24. Applicant is Thomas Hungerford. Nettleton Gulch Road and 17th Street is the location. And this is a proposed SUP restricting 16.64 acres to single-family designation. And Sean is going to give us a review on that.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Hello, Planning Commission. Beautiful weather today. All right, so before us tonight, there is a special use permit request. This is SP 124. It is a request for single-family detached-only designation, and it lies within an R12 zoning district. All of the legal notice has been provided as listed here. That includes mailing to the press, putting it in the press, the property was posted, and it was also given to pipeline companies nearby and political subdivisions. The applicant, which is Thomas Hungerford, according to the code, he is what is called the neighborhood sponsor for this request, and I'll move through the request right now. So there is a decision point here, is whether or not to approve a single-family detached-only designation in an R12 zoning district. So if this is approved, the request would limit the future construction type to single-family detached residential homes and accessory uses in the subject area. So inside of your staff report, there is a couple of, there's 3 different bullet points here, and I'll read some of this information. So some of the history on this. This is a fairly rare request in the city of Coeur d'Alene. Our code does allow for it. There's only been 2 times before that this has come up. One up north, the Pine Grove area, and then Fort Grounds as well. So it seems to be about every 10 to 20 years that this comes up. It's been 10 years. It's been a while. So prior to 2013, the hurdle rate was 75%. That was changed prior to the request in Fort Grounds to the hurdle being 66%, and that was in 2013. And the minimum area, which is an acre and a half, that remained the same. So the neighborhood character is predominantly comprised of single-family homes. There are a few duplexes and an undeveloped parcel within the request. Access to and through the neighborhood is a patchwork of developed streets with the main corridor through Nettleton Gulch Road. The neighborhood provides convenient access to Canfield Mountain Trail System. Despite some incomplete road infrastructure, the area's predominantly flat terrain and abundant greenery offer picturesque views of the surrounding hills and mountains. Residents engage in a variety of outdoor activities, contributing to the neighborhood's vibrant character. The reason for the application, the applicant did provide a fairly long narrative. It was also included in the packet as well. I'll just read a very short sentence here, which is, this special use will preserve the best / Nettleton Gulch area as a transitional space between the rural undeveloped recreational land of Canfield Mountain and the more densely populated, amenity-rich urban fabric of the downtown Coeur d'Alene. So this is an aerial view of the request. It is bound to the north by, and I know I'm going to mess this up, Satry or Sater, I'm not sure. Okay, that one. So to the north, to the south, Haycraft Avenue, and then it's bound by 17th Street and 19th Street, most of where it exists. As you can see in this area here where the red line is, this is city limits. The area inside of this is Kootenai County. So I've included a general description of the residential activities, half acres. There was a total ownership parcels of 37 here, and that total amount calculated out to 16.5 acres. So it did pass that hurdle. The 66% hurdle rate for ownership. So parties of the request, 28 of the 37 signed the request, which is 75.68%. The final hurdle is the amount of property that ownership represents, which is also 66 as well. And those 28 parcels measured out to be 11.1379 acres, or 67.47%. It's also important to note that every parcel that is inside of this area is large enough to have a duplex on it the way that it is currently set up. All of the parcels do measure at least 7,000 square feet. So this map shows the area of request in those 37 ownership parcels. The greens are the ones that signed on to the request, they're party to the request. The red ones, or light pink, I guess, because it's partially see-through, are ones that did not want to join, and then the Ds denote where the duplexes are inside of that subject property.
Sean?
Yes.
Does that include the most recent removal of a 2-acre parcel by Hickman? Their letter this afternoon.
Okay, so
They're pulling back from 2 acres.
great question. I'll explain that right now.
That
The
may
property that you are speaking to, and I'm trying to
I know.
this is, without calling out any specific property to any specific individual. Suffice it to say that that parcel is in here, but she did not sign on. What are, I think, the lines of communications are being crossed is her mother owns the property that is in the county, and then one little sliver here that is in the city limits. And early on, staff met with our legal department, and we determined that that sliver of a parcel would be included as party to the request because they were unable to be contacted.
Understood.
I guess I have a question along similar lines of how do you verify, like if they have the signatures that were provided with the application, but then after tonight, do you verify those before anything is final, since it's really close on the one threshold? Does the city verify all of the individuals?
And we do have the signatures on file. It was, it was brought to a notary and notarized. It's based upon that tax record. We have not specifically gone to each individual to verify that. I can let the legal department determine whether or not we would follow up to make sure that each one of those were valid.
The statute is, or the ordinance is silent. My opinion would be that if somebody opposes this and wants to bring forward evidence that a parcel is not, was not properly signed or signed on to it, that would be their burden. I don't think it's on the city to go out and verify these things. As Sean said, it's been notarized and we can accept that.
Yeah, I was just curious to the process.
Thank you for the question. Okay, so there are 3 required findings for a special use permit. One is whether or not it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The second is whether the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties are compatible. And last but not least is the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development would be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. So first up is the comprehensive plan. So this property is within city limits. The place type, which are labeled over here, is compact neighborhood. This is the future land use map based on the city's 2022 comprehensive plan. So zoomed into that area, this is the neighborhood context here. You can see that the area here in this darker yellow is the compact neighborhood. Adjacent to that was the Kootenai County area. The city limits is green in this case. But this lighter yellow is a single-family neighborhood, and then planned unit development to the south and to the southeast corner here. There's also some civic and urban and retail uses on the other side of 15th Street. So, compact neighborhood. Ahead of myself here a little bit. So are places that are medium density residential areas located primarily in older locations of Coeur d'Alene where there's an established street grid with bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Development is typically single family, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, townhomes, green courts, and auto courts. So supporting uses typically include neighborhood parks, recreation facilities, and parking areas. These are the different types, building types and uses that are associated with a compact neighborhood, and then the associated zoning, which is R12, R17, MH8, neighborhood commercial, and community commercial. So in the transportation portion of the comprehensive plan, we have a bicycle network, a walking network, and a transit network. And here it's kind of tough to see, but there is through the property here a shared roadway, which is in Nettleton Gulch. To the south is a multi-used path. It's not part of the request, but it does move from the neighborhood to the south up to 17th Street. And there is one more little tiny piece in there that was very tough to see, but actually this one's not tough to see. It's 15th Street, which is a bicycle lane that's a couple blocks away. The existing and planned network, there is very little to no sidewalks in the area, and then CityLink is fairly far away from the request. So as part of the policy framework of the comprehensive plan, these are curated policies. These are ones that staff identified as ones that most likely apply to the request. There is the full list in your packet as well that you can choose from. Suffice it to say, there are 3 goals under community and identity, as well as those objectives, and then growth and development, which is here, as well as these 2 objectives, which are GD1 and GD 1.5. I'll save everybody the having to hear me list that all out. It is in the staff report. So moving on to finding B2, which is the design of the planning is or is not compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. This is a zoning map.
Sean, before you get too far ahead, I think I want to stop here and talk about the broader picture of the comprehensive plans, grand design for the community in terms of different types of housing available. And at some point, this was listed as
Compact.
compact, right? right? They designed this area thinking, okay, but next to it, there's a single-family detached area that was designed specifically purposed for just that. And the broader context of that is to ensure that there's adequate housing available for a full spectrum of people living in the area with different financial capabilities. That's my kind of gist of looking at this thing. And then when we say, can the macro picture support changing this compact neighborhood into a single-family neighborhood, single-family detached neighborhood? Probably the answer is yes. But then at some point, I think there's potentially move afoot once people realize what's going on and how effective this is in other areas that have similar challenges of not wanting to increase the amount of multi-domain or multifamily units in their neighborhood. My concern then would be, and Randy, this is kind of back to you in precedence, like how do we get to a point where we know we've maxed out our single-family detached housing map for the comprehensive plan? Like we're at 25%, we're at 10%. Is there a number? Is there something that says we can't do it and still stay within the bounds of the comprehensive plan?
So, a very good question. There's a lot to unwind in that question. The first one, comprehensive plan, it's a guiding document for the 20-year growth. Yep. None of that says, none of those requirements in the, none of the language in the comprehensive plan says that anything has to happen at any certain specific point as far as land use decisions. So it's guidance. That being said, the future land use map does provide what the citizens of Coeur d'Alene have agreed to as what the future growth pattern and use would be of the city. So the ordinance, which is the actual code of the city that does contain the zoning and the things that are hard, fast rules of the city, does allow for the request for single-family detached only designation. So what we're doing is we're taking that code piece and applying it to the comp plan, saying, here's what the comp plan envisioned, and here's what the request of the neighborhood is. To answer your very specific question of a certain percentage, I am not aware of any time the city has laid out in prior comp plans going back early 90s, the mid 2000s to now, that said we had a goal seek or a certain percentage that we had to hit. So that would really be up to Planning Commission and City Council as those land use applications come forward of whether or not they make sense at the time that they are brought forward.
Fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I guess when the comp plan was revisited, there were some estimates from KMPO of population growth. There was a board game at one point that I spent many hours playing, that we were trying to figure out how to fit the population growth, within the bounds of the city and what that could look like. So it wasn't specific enough, though, to any particular area, but you did have to have a pretty decent mix to be able to see that happening, I guess. I don't know if Hillary wants to add anything to that, but.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. So we're looking at, so over 20 years, we're looking at 85,000 was the estimated build out for that year. And so through that process, we had thousands of community members that helped us do the mapping that Commissioner McCracken was talking about and placing tiles, and that correlated to the density or number of dwelling units per acre. And so that was how we came upon this. But it is hard to go parcel by parcel. So the map was great because it was based on our actual city limits and the area of city impact, but you can't drill it all the way down. It just helps provide guidance, as Sean mentioned.
But I think in that process, we identified that there are neighborhoods, and that there is something that neighborhoods can do if they want to. And so hence that's in the plan. And I think that's why it's before us tonight. I understand your overall question, but I think some of this, at least in my mind, it comes to a very specific area.
Yes. So in response to that, what you just placed out there, this goal, develop a mix of land uses throughout the city that balance housing and employment while preserving the qualities that make Coeur d'Alene a great place to live. That's a two-sided statement. It doesn't say planning commission approve what comes before you. There's a balance there. So is the timing correct? Is that neighborhood, is the people that show up, based upon the record that's provided you tonight, what is planning commission and each one of you comfortable with approving or denying? And so one of this is they've kind of self-identified where their district is based upon the subject area that I've laid out here, which is that objective GD 1.5 is recognized neighborhood and district identity. So they've identified the area that they have brought forward. Not everybody is in agreement, obviously. I showed that map, but they have brought that forward for your consideration of should this be single family only detached.
And so the other challenge is there are some duplexes there. If they were to be demolished, only a single-family dwelling could go in that position again?
So yes, what you were speaking about is the nonconformance code in the city of Coeur d'Alene. And so if they are destroyed by damage by more than 50%, then it does have to be rebuilt to the current standard. That being said, each single-family dwelling unit does also allow the ability, which when this code was written didn't anticipate, was ADUs, which is an accessory dwelling unit. We've had long conversations with Randy determining, hey, what would the limit be? What is the allowance in case that question comes up? And it sounds like it's starting to come up, is so that there is the potential for 2 units on every property. Some of the properties are large enough to have 2 single-family homes. The R12 zoning does limit any R12 parcel to a maximum of 2 units without subdivision. So if it's 11,000 square feet, they could have 2 single-family homes. If it's under that, then they could have a single-family home and potentially an ADU if they want to build.
Thank you.
And would they still allow subdivision on the larger lots in there?
Certainly, I mean, that would still require a
Minimum
public
lot
hearing.
requirements and all
It
that,
would
yeah.
come before planning commission, they'd have to meet the standards and.
But if a house had a tree fall on it, a duplex did, then they'd have to rebuild as a single family, if it destroyed the house.
If it's destroyed by more than 50%.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I kind of lost my spot. All right, we're on the zoning. So R12, you can see here, just as Planning Commissioner Coppice described, is we have some properties, I'm losing that are in the county, so they're not really up to us to determine how those are zoned or developed at this point. There has not been a request for annexation yet, but this 19th Street, for most of its existence here on the other side east, does have an R3, which is a single-family zone, and R8 PUD, which does limit to single-family inside of this planned unit development. So it does border those 2 zones. All right, so moving on to the land use map. So this is the current use of the property. It's not 100% up to date. There are those duplexes here, which I showed on my original map showing who is party to the request. This yellow is the single-family detached units. There was a home on this property. It has been removed. This prior planner is now retired, but you can't have 2 uses overlapping one another on our map, and so these very large backyards down here were considered to be vacant because there wasn't any construction back there, as well as this back area was vacant, and this property is currently vacant. The home that was on there has been removed. So around the area here, you can see there's quite a few single families. There's also some other uses such as manufactured, civic type uses, commercial use, and then this light purple, I'm not exactly sure what that one is. It was outside the area. All right, so moving on to the site photos here. So I started in the southeast corner working clock of Steiner. So once you get north of Steiner, it's Nettleton Gulch Road, that's looking south. Nettleton Gulch Road 17th looking east. An interest to mitigate any impacts that would adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood, be specific if you add one to the motion. So with that, Planning Commission will need to consider the special use permit request and make appropriate findings to either approve with conditions, deny, or deny without prejudice. So the last slide will be those three findings, and then the subject property. So with that ends my staff report and my presentation. I'll stand for questions.
Questions? Phil?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Phil.
yeah, Sean, thank you very much. Very informative. Do me a favor, can you go back to the map that shows the color-coded area, the comp plan, and the subject property? Yeah, there it is. The parcel to the immediate west is, to the immediate east is county land, is that right?
Yes.
Do we know what the zoning is on that property or the uses?
Oh, I thought I put it in there.
It can't be, they don't have
Guessing
water and
it's
sewer, I
ag
assume
suburban,
there
but
can't be
I'm
much
not-
there.
I'm not certain on that.
Okay, that's fine. But if they wanted anything of any, if they wanted single-family homes on that, they would have to be incorporated to have utility service, is that correct? If the-
Annexed into the city.
Yeah.
And then they would have to, request either if they want a single family only, they'd probably do the R1 or the R3, right? To be able
Yeah,
to
those
limit
would
it.
be the most restrictive.
And continuing, the darker green area beyond that, that is what right now, single-family homes?
This area?
Yes.
Yes, that is a planned unit development, and so
Okay.
those are single-family homes.
And if we go
There's a
east
park.
of that, at what point is development not even feasible because of Canfield Mountain or whatever elevation?
So, I mean, our area of city impact does go out of ways there, and it is, I mean, I guess define feasible, an engineer would tell you you could do it, a
I know,
planner
I
may say
understand that.
you
They could
cannot, but.
Float a house on the lake, but we're not going to see that happen.
Right, right. It's tough to say that largely, but you are correct, as the land gets more steep, there's more elevation, it becomes more difficult to service that property with city water pressures and getting the streets to have proper grades and those sort of things.
Also, right now, the roadway system in there, look at the aerial photograph, doesn't look real substantive in my opinion.
Yeah, let me get to that picture here. So, basically I took my pictures, I tried to go around here. 19th does dead end here, there is a gap. This road does also end short as well as this road. So the connection through here does not exist for vehicles very well. I believe this does have a fence across this area.
What I know of this area, 15th Street is fairly well developed and it's progressing right along from south to north, perhaps a little intense. But once you get to about 17th, it kind of all tapers off and reverts back to more rural type of development, I believe. And
Yes, I
although
would agree with that. As I stated, that Nettleton Gulch is that through road, so, it's not near as busy as 15th Street, but that is the access to the east.
I know there's a terrific shortage of housing in our community, but every community, I guess. But I think it's important to consider, are we basically setting ourselves up for higher development because it's R12 in an area that is really relatively rural at this point? And if we are, how do we control that? How do we ensure that the more larger lot-type development, single-family homes, remain to the east, and if we're going to increase any densities, we bring it as we go to 15th Street. And I kind of see here 17th Street almost becomes a transition point to where we might consider, I'm not saying we would, we might consider more intense housing, but I don't see it going much further east. Single-family type of development, despite the zoning, seems, in my opinion, just more logical right now, but I'll wait and hear what people have to say.
Okay?
Any other questions, Sean?
I think I've just got one in terms of finding three. Are we going to expect to hear from anyone else from the city in terms of supportability of changing this from single-family dwellings exclusively? Or
No,
you?
from a separate department?
Yeah.
No. there
So
isn't.
then, if you're standing up there, I just want to make sure it's clear. Based on transitioning to single-family dwelling structure for that area, it's supportable from the city standpoint from all public services, water drainage, safety, traffic.
Yes, so those are the comments that we received back from we poll the departments, they email me back, I put it in my staff report. So in this subject area, I can't speak beyond that because that's what we ask them for. It can be met, all of the future development as single family.
Great, thank you.
And Sean, since this is a special use permit for single-family detached only, under the R12s, under special use, there's 17 different things that can be in an R12 with the special use permit. But this particular hearing is just for single-family homes, so it's not going to be under the R12 that I have a sheet here that says there's 17 other things that could be put into that R12 under a special use permit. So are we doing a condition, or are we tying this into single-family only and nothing else?
So, yeah, that is the request, is single
It's a
family
request.
only detached and the associated uses that are on there for accessory.
Okay, okay.
Is there, I guess if it was just to get rezoned to a lower density, would that be another option?
Rezoning, and this is my personal opinion as a planner, is you cannot tie in other ownerships to that rezone if they don't want to go along with it. And so this is not, like, a rezone really affects densities, it can affect setbacks, it can affect heights, and
Right.
so a lot of those elements remain the same with this. It's really that structure type that changes, and then duplex is 3,500 per, that would go away, where it's just 5,500 per single-family home for lot size.
Okay.
So it is kind of a blend, though. You are correct. It has that taste a little bit of a zone change, but it's
Right.
really structure type. You know, a PUD requires a minimum of 1.5 acres. That's the minimum request for the special use permit. So it does have some elements that feel like other land use types or decisions.
So if somebody were looking at this property on your map and it had this very specific, 3 times in the last 60 years, restriction on it, how would they know that restriction exists? Will it be like a different color on the map, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So it would be R12, which is that green color, and then we put a red edge around each one of those lots that are single family only.
Okay.
And Sean, this might be a question for the applicant. Single family, you have to have 5,500 square feet per dwelling unit, like you mentioned. I guess I can ask the applicant, given all the acreage there, how many single-family homes with additional parking and streets and things like that they might get on that piece of property? Is that a question for the applicant at some point in time?
So Thomas is the neighborhood sponsor. He owns one of the homes in this area. So I'm not sure who you would pose, or who you want to pose your question to.
Okay, okay.
I have a question. I used to be a planning and zoning commissioner in Hayden, and we developed Hayden Canyon. Wow, it was a long haul. They developed something called co-housing, and they took the acreages and used the acreages for multiple single-family cottage-style homes around central park space. We don't have that here. We don't recognize something called co-housing. We don't even have multi-generational housing. I do think we're going to be looking at that in the future, but I would hope that we could tuck it in under this so that some of these people with these larger parcels could say, gee, if we consolidate 4 of these, we get a decent acreage that could have shared green space, cottage homes for grandma or starter homes. We did that purposefully up in Hayden so that people didn't have to spend a lot of money for that parcel of land, but still got open green space and natural environment. So I could see how this isn't slamming the door onto everybody with a picket fence on a 5,500 square foot lot. That there are people here who don't want to join this because they're going, well, heck, I want to do more with my land than just this. and you're slamming the door on me, on my potential, on my family, or my trust, or whatever it is that they have those holdings in. So I don't think that, we're not there yet, but I think we're going to get there because there's more demand for people to live here. So I would be, supportive of alternative forms of housing to our city, which we're needing desperately. So I hope we're going to see it in a bunch of places in the city. So I just open that as a thought. Plant a seed and think about it, because I know people aren't going to be happy when they're told, hey, we can't put duplexes, you're telling us what we can't do now. Instead of, and this neighborhood is very tight, obviously. They've conjoined each other to support single family. But I think that we need more dimension to that. It's happening all over this nation because we have a housing shortage and affordability. So anyway, just a thought.
But again, this does one item. This is one thing only, and that precludes duplexes. That's it. That's a single change. Whether what you want to do with your property, Tom, you can continue to do whatever that may be, but it's just the density.
Hillary, you got to.
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful to clarify that that's not true. So it would not allow the co-housing, it would not allow
Nope.
twin homes. It's single-family detached. And it would probably be helpful, depending on how this goes, if commission's supportive or if the neighborhood wants to ask for it, that to clarify that they would like the accessory dwelling units, because the code is kind of unclear. We've allowed them in the Fort grounds, but it'd probably be helpful to determine that that's also allowed with this special use permit if it goes forward.
And I know a lot
it
of
would not
people-
allow other housing types. It wouldn't just
It
preclude
doesn't.
duplex.
It's just
It would
single
be-
family. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be
Period.
attached single family as well.
My issue is that we're all very clear on what this does. Just very clear, that's whatever it may be, because I think might be going off into other areas what could happen. But this has some very specific, I believe.
I'll repeat myself, it's single-family homes with ADU units as well, right?
Isn't clear.
Correct.
Yeah, so it can either be a single,
Currently, the code only, if this special use permit were to go forward per code, it is single-family detached housing only.
okay.
Only.
You can add a condition to the special use permit to allow ADUs,
Okay,
but absent that condition, it would be my opinion that single-family dwellings are all that is allowed in this special use zone.
Randy, I got a follow-up for you then. Anything that we add to that, does it have to go back through the hurdle process of meeting at least 66% approval by all those within the zone to be qualified as an approval that can come before us?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to look at this.
And then the density still stays the same. It'll be R12, so the density, as long as they meet the requirements, can be at 12 units an acre.
Correct. So all the other underlying, the lot size, the dimensional requirements, setbacks, height, all of that
Yeah.
would still apply.
I guess that seems to be a difference of opinion between the prior legal department head and now. So with Fort Grounds, they didn't make any special extra for ADU. It was whether or not ADU was considered accessory. And so I guess, does that mean that they need to have, they need to say it's okay to have garages? Because that's an accessory use as well. So,
But it's not a dwelling unit.
but
Fair
this
enough.
request is single-family home, attached garages, no ADUs, ADU, asking for any ADUs at this time. That's what we're looking at right now.
I think it'd be helpful for the applicant, the neighborhood sponsor, to clarify what they discussed as a neighborhood. If everyone expected single-family detached with an ADU, that would help
Okay.
to clarify that intent, or if they thought, no, it's just single-family detached only, no accessory dwelling units.
All right, we'll ask the applicant some of those questions.
all right.
Okay, any other questions of Sean before? All right, and before I continue, is there any conflict of interest on this particular item with any of the commissioners? No? And usually I swear in everyone individually, but since there's so many people sitting here, just say I do after I read the statement. You don't have to, I don't have to swear you in every time. Do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I
Yes, all right, thank you. First person up is the applicant, Tom Hungerford.
Let me set that up for you. Thank you. There we go.
So my name is Tom Hungerford. I'm one of the neighbors, and I'm actually going to be co-presenting with my neighbor Shannon Sardell. I'm going to talk first and then let her take over after I do my presentation.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say that. So one thing I wanted to start with is, and I think that this is the thing that the people are going to be most concerned about. When I started this process and really looking into it, we were looking clearly at what the code says. And I just brought it up. I do not have it as part of my presentation, but I have it in front of me. And I talked to several people about this, and you've got your principal uses that are listed in the R12. Then you have next to that is your accessory uses. Now, the special use permit is, as you were saying, there's 17 different things that you could request as part of that special use. So, but with that, we were told and were under the impression the whole time that accessory uses, anything that was allowed there, that in the accessory uses part was still allowed. That the only thing that we'd be doing is having the single-family designation, that ADUs were still allowed. And I know that's going to be a touch point with a lot of the other neighbors. So that's something, like I said, I had done what I felt like was my research, and was under the understanding that that was going to be allowed under this restriction.
So you think, your impression was single-family homes with ADU units somewhere on that property?
Yes, that people could still, because I talked to several different people about that and asked if that was allowed. So they can still, if they currently have a home, or even if they build a home, that ADUs were still going to be allowed.
When you say you had that conversation, who was
Yes.
that conversation? Was it
I
staff?
had that. I
He
had
did
that
with staff.
with Sean.
Oh, okay.
I also
It was-
had that with Tammy Stroud.
Okay,
And yeah, they were the two.
all right, so it was the city staff people?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that. So,
Yeah. So anyway, like I said,
go ahead.
Just to follow up with that then.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that there were multiple people that may have different perspectives on that specific topic within your zone, are they part of the 67.47%?
Yes, I can tell you that I talked to every single person of the 37, except for Mr. Kaufman, who owns the large property.
Understood.
And there was one duplex owner that lives in California. I reached out to him. I sent him personally a letter and never did hear back from him. I contacted and was personally in person with these people, the duplex owners. Every single person on that, the 37, I talked to, except for two people.
Thank you. So-
Personally talked to.
Out of all the green squares in that zone, not the red ones, the green ones, all the green zones were on board with ADUs?
Yes, absolutely. And I will also say, and want to bring this up since we're talking about that, the 4 reds with the Ds were the duplexes. And I personally met with each one of those duplex owners except for the one out of California. And they were fantastic, by the way. And I let them know, because I personally wanted to tell them, this is the downside for you. If you do this and this happens, you are the ones who have a downside to this. So they were gracious enough to allow time to think about it and then had me get back to them. And then that's when they informed me they did not want to be part of it. But yeah, I took my time and talked to a lot of people on this.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, and this is, again, what we have in front of us is, this is what it says, SP-1-24, Special Use Permit, SUP, request for single-family detached only designation in an R12 zone. So if you're under the impression that ADU units are allowed in this special use permit, I'm going to have to ask staff, is that a condition we can put on saying single-family and ADUs would be allowed, given the fact what we just heard, given what you just asked, that percentage, those people said yes. And I'm not sure how that can be proven, given the fact that what we have in front of us is single-family designation only.
I'll start and then I'll have Randy might want to chime
Okay.
in. And what Mr. Hungerford said and what Sean said is correct. So planning department has been telling people, we've been under the impression since our previous legal services director that ADUs are allowed in the single family only special use permit designation. So that was kind of their impression, but I just want to make sure, because when Randy and I were discussing it this evening, he said it didn't look as clear as that in the code. So the commission has the option to add that as a condition, just to make it crystal clear, so in the future, there's no ambiguity for anyone who's developing on their property. I'll let Randy add to that if he'd like to.
Okay, so we can add that as a condition.
I would say yes, you should add it as a condition because it is unclear, and I don't know what to do about the percentages. I would go forward with the percentages as they've been presented, and if somebody objects, then we can revisit it. But a single-family detached housing is a permitted use.
Right,
An accessory dwelling use is an accessory use. They aren't the same thing.
right. So I'm going to have to.
So to be clear, you should make it a condition.
Right, and, not saying your conversation isn't what happened, but again, there's nothing in front of us, that we have a sheet in here that has all the people. There's nothing in there that says ADU also in a single family,
Right, understood.
so,
And,
go ahead.
and like I said, I know that when I talked to people, we were all under that impression, so, and that may change where people are at on this. And I would totally understand that, because like, it's difficult when you go to move forward on something like this, and you're talking to people, and you're getting the information, and then you have this information, and I'm looking at the code, right, and showing it to people. I literally had a copy of the code with me and showing what was allowed. So that was the impression that we were under.
and again, I asked staff, what Tom just said, the code, is that correct? The code says single-family and ADU units are allowed? Is that what the code you're talking about here, or what?
It's in
I
the
need clarification on this,
It's
because,
in the accessory uses section is where it's at. I have it right here unfortunately, but it doesn't do any good right there.
accessory under
He's
here,
saying this one and this one, but.
yeah, it says carport garages, storage structure, private recreation facility, accessory dwelling units.
Yep,
So,
I mean, and-
under the R12,
Yes,
you can have accessory dwelling units
Yes.
under the permitted uses. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
So
Go ahead, Peter.
do we need to have a condition put in here for ADUs?
That is my recommendation because I don't
If-
think
if
the
that's-
ordinance
if
is
that's the
entirely
case,
clear.
If that's the case, and the individual told all the people that it included ADUs, and some of the staff did and so forth, I suggest we presume that in our deliberations, that a condition is ADUs. And that when we act on this, we act on it including that condition.
We
If
can make a
don't- If we don't
condition.
solve the ADU question right now, we're not gonna get any place.
Well, I'm sure we're going to hear from the general public.
Well, I understand that.
And we're going to allow Tom to continue. So when
Well, I
it
just
comes
wanted
to
to-
us, we'll discuss it, and then if there's a condition added for ADUs, then we'll have that discussion.
In my mind, Mr. Chair, I'm going to put my little brain that this thing's coming before us includes ADUs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Tom, go ahead.
okay. This isn't what I do every day,
Go
so
right
I
ahead.
apologize. I'm going to do the best I
It's
can.
all right.
I'm going to
Take
probably
it.
stumble a little bit. First off, I do want to thank you all for taking the time to allow us to bring this presentation to you. And I also want to thank where Sean went to, I'm not right here, but I want to thank him. He did an amazing job on his staff report and his presentation, and has just been really good to work with through this whole process. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the efforts that he's put into all this. So you are going to have in front of you 3 things that you need to find in order to approve us. So in your findings, it's simple. Sean explained this, but is this compatible with the comprehensive plan? Is this compatible with the, is this in conformance with the comprehensive plan? Is this compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties? The location, design, and size of the proposal will be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. And I believe after our presentation, you'll find that we will meet all three of the criteria. So as you can see here, we have this large map area. This is our neighborhood. This is the 37 properties that we are talking about. What we're trying to do is we knew that we wanted to keep the current character. So that's how we wound up coming to the conclusion of that the restriction to single family was the best avenue for us to do this. So why did we choose the 37? Because there's 37 properties right there. It was the simplest, right there, the natural boundaries bordered by city streets. As you can see, there's a street on every single piece of that boundary. So it made sense. It was a nice uniform piece of property right in the heart of all of this right here. We made sure, and I can tell you from talking to people, I made sure that with the information that I have to be as clear as I possibly could and have an understanding to everybody I talked to of what this permit and this application was about. I spent a lot of time, and other people were talking to neighbors. So, and I think that was apparent. The city didn't get a lot of phone calls from people as far as asking questions. We put a lot of effort into all that. So one thing I'm going to move on to here, this is what I like to, it's an area of effect. Right here is where we are. That's the third, right here, and that's what we're doing. We are asking you to recognize the community and the neighborhood identity. And I believe that this commission has. You've seen us up here before. You've seen how we've maintained and carried ourselves. And I think that you identify with.
Pieces of property.
Yes, that's correct.
Clarification for me, if this is all single family.
Yes, it
depending on
is,
how
except
this
for the
goes,
4 duplexes.
There'll be 37 homes, or are you gonna?
There are already currently 37 homes there. So
Okay.
basically what you have is the 37 properties right here. This right here is a duplex. This is
Okay.
a duplex right here. This is a duplex right here. And then this is a duplex right here.
Okay.
So other than that, this is all single-family homes, every single one of them. This one was a single-family home, and like Mr. Holmes said, that it has been demolished. So yes, and everything, if I can go back to my larger picture, whoops, thank you. I am not computer savvy here. How do I get rid of that? I'm not a computer person at all.
Okay.
So if you look at this, and it goes, you've already referenced to the 17th line. Now, the square footage wise, it doesn't quite fit. They got to make some changes, whatever. But if you were to take that same thing, you could wind up putting in potentially 10 or 11 homes in there instead. So kind of addressing one thing that was brought up just a little bit ago, you talked about the need for housing. There needs to be a housing. We're not saying that we're trying to stop somebody from changing what they can do in their property. This property right here, 0.90 acres. Let's say that gentleman decided he wanted to subdivide his lot and put 2 homes in there, or 3 homes, depending on what it allows. As long as you have your 5,000 square foot or 5,500 square foot
Right.
lot.
Very extensive, and I appreciate so much of everybody's time. As you just heard from Mr. Hungerford, the Best Hills and Nettleton Gulch neighborhood is seeking approval of an overlay that allows, well, before this, when I wrote this, single-family homes with additional dwelling units, structures in our neighborhood. We feel that this request meets many aspects of the comprehensive plan for the city of Coeur d'Alene. On the slide, I have highlighted a number of areas of the comprehensive plan that this request reflects. Some of these are beyond what the staff report included, but I think if you were to go look at them, we do fit a number of different categories. Our neighborhood is comprised of well-informed, responsive, and involved citizens and our variety of sustainable uses. Our request for this overlay is compatible with the surrounding locations, setting, and other existing uses. On this slide, I have simply used 2 maps from the staff report to illustrate that our neighborhood sits at the east edge of Coeur d'Alene with proposed zone R3, R8, and county properties. To the south, there is an R8 PUD with single-family homes, and to the north and the west is our R12 zone. These maps show that the overlay request to maintain single-family housing with ADU development is compatible with the surrounding locations, especially to the east and south, areas that look to our neighborhood as that soft transition between what is urban in the west and more rural to the east. Further, the map on the right clearly shows that the proposed overlay is currently comprised of family homes and is surrounded by similar housing types, some regulated with PUD and others that are not. Finally, in addressing the existing conditions and services, I again used two maps from the staff report to illustrate that controlling future construction to single-family detached residential homes and accessory uses supports the existing and planned bicycle and walking networks in the comprehensive plan and will not put undue stress on the current or planned streets or standard city services. Nettleton Gulch Road is a shared roadway, and we can see it, and I believe, I'm gonna go off here, right there, with the bicycle network, despite its current heavy use by cars, trucks, trailers, and service vehicles heading up to the mountain. The neighborhood is a significant gateway to the closest rural outdoor mountain experiences on USDA Forest Service lands for the city of Coeur d'Alene. This forest land and the parking area from which multiple trailheads are available is advertised in tourist information, outdoor guides, and in searchable trail applications used by outdoor enthusiasts, including Trail Forks, Gaia GPS, and All Trails. We feel that this special use permit will preserve the existing neighborhood identity, ensure a high quality of life for its residents, and provide for safe and efficient motorized, bicycle, and pedestrian public access to the Canfield Mountain area. It will preserve this area as a transitional space between the rural undeveloped recreational land of Canfield Mountain and the more densely populated, amenity-rich urban fabric of downtown Coeur d'Alene. With this special use permit overlay, this transitional space will support the continued growth within our neighborhood in tandem with all forms of recreation the area has to offer. That's all I've got.
Thank you. A quick question for staff. If this gets approved, let's say, and someone has enough of square footage on a property to put 2 or 3 single-family homes, do they have to put in new streets, sewer, water, all that stuff that goes with a single-family home on a piece of property to 3 pieces of property, 1 piece of property with 3 new homes on that?
Subdividing it into multiple properties, they would have to do that. If it's just a single-family lot you could only do 2
Right.
single-family homes. As Sean indicated, if you have a lot that's large enough, 11,000 square feet, they'd have to do the frontage improvements as well. They'd
Okay,
have
so
to-
they would have to do everything that's the building department or...
Right,
or-
whatever's required. If there's no sidewalks within, I forget how many feet, they wouldn't have to probably do the sidewalks, but they'd have to do the curb gutter, all of that.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I've got
Yes.
a follow-up with that, and it has to do with, if you're finished, I have a follow-up.
Yeah, go right ahead, yeah.
In the findings of fact, I'm seeing down here, the commission should add other facts here, which if it finds relevant to its decision, I would think, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, it's appropriate to add A9, staff evaluation hurdle rates, evaluating this proposal for both ownership and property include conditions of allowing accessory dwelling units on all properties. So some wording of that effect in the findings of fact, if we can say this, that's in the staff report, or do we need to say that that's as described by Mr. Hungerford?
I think that would be appropriate to put that in, and it can be based on the staff report.
Perfect.
It can be based on presentation by the applicant, which is sworn testimony, or it can be put based upon the testimony of anyone else who testifies.
Thank you.
Okay, Amber Hicks does wish to speak. Everybody has 3 minutes, so Go right ahead.
I'll do my best. Thank you for hearing from us tonight. I would just like to point out that I agree with everything that was just presented. I am a homeowner, actually shown in most of the photos that you saw for the subject property. We own a single-family residence. It is our first home that we've owned. We previously rented on 15th Street in a townhome. And so our draw to this subject property that we're talking about tonight was the single-family residences. And what I keep hearing in our community is we have a shortage of homes. I would argue specifically that we have a shortage of single-family residences. I did not have issues finding rentals in townhomes and duplexes. I had a hard time finding affordable single-family residences. Our neighborhood offered that to me and my husband and our young son. It gave us a manageable size property with a well-built home with plenty of rooms and the size for our growing family. And so that's what we're presenting tonight, is not restricting what our current homeowners have, but preserving what is already there. And I think you can see that through the maps that were presented with how many green parcels and how few duplex properties are currently existing in that area. I would also like to point out that Gilbert and Haycraft dead end not far past my home here. So this second photo where that white truck is, that's my home. This picture is taken from the corner of 17th and Gilbert, looking toward the dead end portion there. So you can see where it turns to a dirt road. Gilbert and Haycraft both have that, and behind that is that PUD area. So we have narrow roads. 17th Street cannot even have sidewalks put on it. They're all uncontrolled intersections through here, through Gilbert and Haycraft. I've been told by the city engineer that we cannot get sidewalks because the road's too narrow. It turns to single lane where it intersects Nettleton from 17th. It's not even two-lane traffic. And so the other thing we're trying to do is keep it safe for all of the kids that live in our community, which falls as a burden to the city, really, because if we continue to allow, this compact designation with infill into these lots, it's going to ramp up the amount of traffic funneling out into these roads with no safe sidewalks for people to walk on. The closest sidewalk is about halfway down the distance between Gilbert and 15th Street, where single-family residences were ripped out to put townhomes in, which are now short-term vacation rentals. So they're not even helping our housing problem. They're getting turned into vacation rentals at the corner of 15th Street and Gilbert. And so I'm here to say I don't want that to happen. You're also going to hear testimony from people who don't live as homeowners in our community in opposition to this, so I encourage you to ask if they are current property owners when they are speaking.
Okay,
Thank you.
I got a quick question before I call the next person up, to Randy. On the, and Mark brought this up, the percentage of how this got approved, those are the people that lived in that neighborhood, correct? They needed 67 or how many percentage?
Yes, within that designated boundary.
In that designated area. So if anyone, not saying anyone can speak, but if someone's speaking outside of that general area as opposed to this, they weren't part of that tally of getting approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Just needed some clarification.
And
Go
just
ahead.
to clarify on that, there's two different qualifiers. One is ownership, and the other is people dwelling in the properties. Is that, because I look at, there's two separate hurdle rates. Sean, if you want to tackle that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so there's three total hurdles. One's the acre and a half.
Qualifier.
The other one is the number of owners, and the other one represents the property size.
Okay,
So that's that third
okay,
one.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Adam Hicks? Did not wish to speak. Jan Hungerford? Did not wish to speak. Clayton Roxy does not wish to speak. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, if I can read it. Kelly Wilderson does not wish to speak. And all those people are in favor of this so far. Tom Renier is in favor, did not wish to speak. Shannon Sardell does wish to speak. No,
She already
She
presented.
already did.
she
She
did?
was number 2.
Oh, okay, I must have had you down or checked off a
She
different
got
name.
more than 3 minutes.
Okay, gotcha. Ken Pinna does not wish to speak, is in favor. Dave Patzer is in favor, does not wish to speak. Jenna Haggery is in favor, does not wish to speak. Patty Rainbow is in favor and did not indicate if you wanted to speak or not. Okay. Rick Rainboff is in favor, did not indicate whether you wanted to speak or not. Carrie Dullman is in favor and does not wish to speak. Edward Ron Engine is in favor and does not wish to speak. Dylan Kaufman is opposed and does not wish to speak. Mark Carlton is in favor, did not indicate whether he wanted to speak or not. Larry Chumra did not indicate anything. Okay. James
Blumgren? Hard to see.
is in
Blumgren?
favor and did not indicate if he wanted to speak or not. Mary Ann Bloomgren is in favor, did not indicate if he wanted to speak or not. Mike Buzz,
That's great.
okay, thank you, is in favor, did not indicate if he wanted to speak or not. You want to
may.
speak?
You
Come on
may.
up. You are Mike, right?
Right.
Okay, go right ahead.
Mike Busgood. I was kind of,
Close.
yeah,
It's okay.
writing really quick.
It's not texting, so nobody can write anymore.
So, and I'm left-handed, so that's.
That's
Oh, there
all
you go. That's
All
the
right,
reason.
you can still speak, it's okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. My wife and I live east, so we don't live in the actual rectangle, but we live right off of Nettleton Gulch, off of Herb Lane. And when we've been to these meetings before, some of the people that have been talking about wanting to put multifamily units in have mentioned a couple of things that I always find odd, since we're fairly new to the area. We're about 5 years. One is the need for multifamily units, affordable housing, and yet, from my perspective, when you drive around this city, there's a ton of major apartments going up all over the place. So I just personally question, is that really the issue? And I appreciate what was said right before, that is it more multifamily units that we need, or is it more housing that we need? This proposal, I think, is positive in the aspect that it doesn't limit housing, it just preserves the neighborhood, and it makes it compatible to what my wife and I moved into. We specifically understand the 17th and the change, because we wanted to be somewhat rural but have neighbors around us, and that's exactly what we have. We happen to live in Herb Nettleton's old house, and that's the other part that I always find interesting, is that we're always talked about as an aging neighborhood. Personally, I'm aging, I understand that, but I see a lot of other people when I drive around the area that aren't. I mean, I see little kids, and they're getting older, but I wouldn't call them aging, and so I don't understand the reasoning behind an aging neighborhood needs to be leveled and rebuilt in multifamily units. It just doesn't make sense to me. And the third thing that nobody has mentioned, but it relates to the traffic in Nettleton, is the poor creatures that don't get to speak. We have 10 to 12 deer on our property constantly, 30 to 40 turkeys,
and they have to go across Nettleton, apparently. We have what we call Mama Bent Knee too, because her leg's busted where she obviously got hit. Mama Bent Knee one had gotten hit and had since passed away. The increase of multifamily units, that's the whole thing. It changes the neighborhood. It's not compatible, and it just adds more threat to the community that we chose to live in. We chose to live here because of the way it looks now, not the way certain people are wanting it to look in the future. That's my point. Thanks.
Thank you. And I got a quick question for Sean or staff here before I bring other people up. There's not going to be an influx of single-family homes being built tomorrow unless the people go through some sort of application or put, even if they can put 2 on a piece of property. I mean, there's a process that has to happen.
Right, this is different than a zone change or subdivision or PUD. There's not an intention to develop right now. It would
Right.
just be typical people deciding to change their property, to either add the accessory dwelling unit, if we clarify that, or
All right. Tom got enough.
build 2 single-family homes, or subdivide their lot.
All right,
But,
so
yeah.
Tom got enough of signatures as the neighborhood representative to preserve this rectangle square as single-family homes. What someone wants to do with their property down the road, that's totally up to them.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Brody Kaufman is opposed and did not wish to speak. Todd Kaufman is opposed and does wish to speak. And Todd, were you in the area where they took the survey of question?
Was I there?
No, was your home or wherever you live in the area of?
Yeah,
where
you
the
guys,
sur-
we've been here
He's
2
the
years
big
now going on
Kaufman
this. You
house.
know which piece of property
Big
I have,
property.
Oh,
It's a big
okay.
property.
Okay,
Kaufman.
right? And I mean, I tried twin homes to drive this home.
Right, okay.
Single-family residents
Sorry.
are twin homes.
Go ahead.
Right? I
okay,
have the largest piece of property in this.
okay.
So, I have a problem here. First off, I wasn't noticed. Never got nothing in the mail, not certified, not snail mail, not email, nothing. First I found out about this meeting today was on Friday when Jeremy and I were talking about some other stuff. So, I don't know how staff got notices out, but I was not noticed, not any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we had the
So
mailings.
therefore, my attorney couldn't be here. Susan Weeks isn't here tonight.
Well, can you let Hillary answer how notices went out, please?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yep, so there's a requirement to get all the mailing labels from a title company, so we have that, and that's based on the address of record that comes from the county, so.
Yep, but all the
have-
mailers I've always done, I had to do them
They're not certified. No, we're not required to do certified, it's just regular standard
Well,
mail.
I'd like to see the list even with the mailers that came from the title company, because I've done the exact same thing lots of times, and I never got any notice. So therefore, my attorney's Susan's not here tonight, because she's got a hearing in Spirit Lake. She's the city attorney for Spirit Lake. So she'll be at the next ones. But I tried to do twin homes here. Those are single-family residents. They just have a wall down one side. We've sat here and listened. Tom just said, well, you could put 10 houses here, and this is all about traffic. Well, I could put 10 single-family residents on my piece of property with ADUs. I was trying to do 18 twin homes. There would be 18 doors. I had green space. I had a private road that the city didn't have to take care of, and you guys turned me down for it twice. Right? I tried with 24, then I went to 18, and now I'm back in my application's in front of this, that I have vested rights here, and that I've had an application in to do a subdivision for 9 duplex lots. You guys, in A2, it's misleading because it says there's only 4 duplexes. Well, I've got an application in front of it for 9 duplex lots. I just don't see how, this is spot zoning, and it's not changing this to single family. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change traffic. I can still build single-family residence on each lot, 10 lots. I can still put an ADU in the backyard. I can do 20 rentals if I want to. I've tried to do this, and I've spent a lot of money chasing this, and you guys keep kicking the can down the road, and Tom's smoke and mirrors of what he's trying to show everybody, that it's going to stop traffic if we, have single-family residents. It's not changing anything in traffic. It doesn't change anything. I'm still going to build on this lot, and I'm trying to follow the letter of the law here, and that's why I'm back to duplexes. And now we're trying to change duplexes. So I had less density than what I can do now with single family. 5,500 square foot lot, and I can put an ADU on it. On a duplex lot, I had to have 7,000 square feet, right? So I don't know where you guys think that this is gonna change anything. It's not gonna change traffic. It's not gonna add traffic. When I do the subdivision, I have to pave 17th Street. I think that there were signs, no parking gonna go on this street. There's a lot of different things, and I just don't see what this is doing good for anybody. It's not fixing anything. It's not changing anything. It's not changing density. That's all I have.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this individual, he has an item before us, a continuing, you've had it for a couple of years, I think, and.
Well,
and
I've done.
We've considered it, but.
Two PUDs,
but
yep, and I've had my application in since January.
I understand that. My question is, as we go through this, if this is approved, is he, for lack of a word, grandfathered in, or will he be affected? It sounds like it's not going to affect him, if a duplex, anyway, is he
It would
precluded?
affect him.
Will
It would
directly
affect his
him.
property.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it directly affects him.
Well, even though he's got something in process?
Doesn't matter. This
Correct.
directly affects him.
All the property in this rectangle that's in front of us will be, if it gets approved, single-family homes.
Duplexes, twin homes, not part of
That
this.
is affirmed by the city attorney.
That's correct.
Yes, there's not a vested right to build anything in particular
Very
at
good.
this point.
You're the only one I'll pay attention
The
to. you know, on
application's
this.
already started, so.
Jeremy Tezula is neutral and Jeremy. Hello again.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeremy Terzulli for the record. I do remain neutral on this project. I am the Todd Kaufman's representative for the previous applications that have been put before you. All the questions that have come up are the same questions that we've had because this code section is very, very thin. It's 3 or 4 sentences long. It looks like it was just sort of stuck in there in the R12. And as far as the application requirements, if I'm to bring an application before you for zone change or annexation, I have to hire a surveyor, I have to provide meets and bounds descriptions. There is a much higher bar for that. The applicant was able to just go to the assessor's office, provide assessor records. It seems a little flimsy, if I'm being honest, but again, I still remain neutral. The SUP request, as noted by the applicant's representative, is in essence an overlay zone. And we can go to Title 67 of Idaho State Statute, Chapter 65, Local Land Use Planning. Section B states that the governing board, that's you, shall establish clear and objective standards for the overlay zoning district while ensuring that the application of those standards does not constitute a regulatory taking pursuant to Idaho or federal law. I believe that this overlay district does entitle no fewer than 5 property owners to request a regulatory takings analysis by the city based on the fact that, in essence, this is downzoning their property. I'm not sure if it was brought up during some of your questions that if more than 50% of these structures are demolished, they will not be able to be rebuilt as duplexes, so therefore they're devaluing their properties. I did reach out to my insurance agent. He said some special riders would probably need to go on to those duplex owners right now to insure against that. And there's going to be some weird caveats if they ever do have an insurance claim on those properties. Additionally, I did reach out to my preferred lender stating that lending options on those non-conforming, the legal non-conforming uses on those properties pretty much go to nil for people wanting to get a loan on those duplexes. If these property owners wanted to sell those, they've shrunk their pool of buyers on those to people that can pay cash and that are willing to deal with the fact that they could not rebuild a duplex structure on there if it were destroyed. So I believe that all 4 of those property owners are entitled to a takings analysis to be provided by the city if they choose. Mr. Kaufman is obviously, he is entitled to a takings analysis. So I guess I just wanted to give you some food for thought that actually state statute does offer very clear direction that you can't approve this if it does not regulate or does not constitute a regulatory taking. And I encourage you to consult with your city attorney to check the veracity or validity of anything that I've said. Thank you.
Before I call the next person on the list, I'm going to give Randy a couple of minutes to.
What is the question for me?
Just, given what we just heard, taking and such,
Any property owner can request a takings analysis. I've not received a formal request for a takings analysis.
okay?
Can we grandfather in the current duplexes as long as they remain as duplexes into this environment?
You mean the existing duplexes?
The existing duplexes,
They are grandfathered in
They are
unless.
grandfathered by right,
By ordinance,
right.
unless there's a destruction event that exceeds a certain amount.
Right.
And there are also limitations on what structural changes can be made and so forth. But yes, they are grandfathered in, provided they remain essentially as they are.
Do we need to state that?
Well, they're
No.
It's given, it's a
they're
given.
grandfathered in as duplexes because they are duplexes presently.
Correct.
But if they are 50% or more destroyed, they have to come back as single-family homes. Can we perhaps do a condition for those duplexes saying they're exempt from being single-family homes if they're destroyed more than 50%? Or how can we make a condition so that those duplexes, if they're 50% destroyed, if 50% more are destroyed or it's damaged more than 50%, they can bring back duplexes instead of just doing single-family homes?
No, I don't think the Planning Commission can change the ordinance on
Can't do that.
Okay,
non-conforming uses.
okay. Did you have a
Is
question?
is this a non-conforming use then? Are these duplexes
It
non-conforming?
will be.
It
if-
will be.
Well, we've had two cases, I know, since I've been on here, where we've modified the non-conforming, saying that if that building is damaged or burnt down, they can rebuild, using, as it currently is. And one was a store, and another was a family residence was infringing on the waterfront. And we both, in some fashion, I don't know if it's compatible, but we did take action, and one was damaged. In fact, it was torn down and rebuilt. So,
Am I done?
Okay. All right, moving on. I think this Tony
Before I'm done.
Maramore did not indicate whether he'd want to speak or anything. Kyle Holmes is in favor and does wish to speak.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Welcome.
Born and raised Coeur d'Alene guy. I wanted to kind of focus on just the character of Coeur d'Alene. In 40 years of being here, it's beautiful. I'm pro-development in the sense that everything that's been going on over the last few decades benefits us who live here. Hagedon downtown and everything that has come up is beautiful for us to enjoy. As Amber and others have hit on, the character of our community is the one thing that we wish to establish. You can go anywhere in Post Falls and get a tract house inside of a leveled piece of what used to be just farmland, so no mature trees, no maturity in those neighborhoods. We have, my house is the second picture, the big tree that's poking out right there. We have massive maples, massive willows, beautiful trees. Sitting on my back porch, I have a mountain and tons of trees, and it's beautiful. And so the character of our neighborhood is the key thing that I want to see preserved inside of this. Side note, my yard has a very large yellow sign posted on this meeting this evening, so just putting that out there. And so in this, the gentleman who spoke from the city discussed the picturesque version of our neighborhood. And it kills me to see trees getting removed. Downtown, when they redid the park, or the the walkway in front of the museum and they ripped all those trees out, or the new trees that just got taken out on 4th and Sherman. I appreciate that they put new ones back, but with development comes the removal of trees. With development comes the shaking up of the ground, and trees start falling on our houses again, and our area is very prone to that. And so maintaining what we have, because all of our homes are unique and different. I didn't buy a house where I bought because I wanted the same 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot track house that my neighbor has, that their neighbor has. There's 1,000 different places between in Kootenai County, from Spirit Lake to as far south as you want to go, that there are neighborhoods full of that. We have unique individual homes that bring character and beauty to our neighborhood. That it was previously stated, we're a neighborhood of houses reaching their age of uselessness, which couldn't be farther from the truth. And the level of disrespect that comes in the statements that have been made towards our neighborhood is humorous, to say the least. But if we wanted to live in a tract home, we would sell and go pay $590,000 for a house that's a third the size of what we currently live in. And so that's truly where it comes down to for me, is the character. We have a beautiful walking neighborhood with wonderful trees. When I got deployed in 2020, I had neighbors who took care of my wife. I got 4 days notice. She had a double mastectomy, couldn't even lift a coffee cup barely. And I had neighbors that came in and took care of her. We are a wonderful community that cared for my kids for many months. And so that's all I ask for. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Barub did not indicate whether you want to speak or anything. You're good? Sorry about that. Harold Brazil is in favor and does wish to speak. No? Not here? Okay. Bob Cabal is in favor, does not wish to speak. Hillary Hallerat is in favor and does not wish to speak. Hannah Ekstrom is in favor but did not indicate if you wanted to speak. Megan Jans is in favor and does, come on up.
Thank you for having me. I'm one of the larger landowners in this project. I'm one of the 0.9 acres lots, and I'm in favor of this. I think the special use permit is a reflection of the majority of our neighborhood's desires, both in rejecting proposals like Todd Kaufman's that have come up again and again, and our community has shown up and said we're not in favor for various reasons, but to also preserve what we have, which is very unique. It's a pretty rare process. We didn't even know this existed. Like, we've been at this City Hall several times, and if we'd known that option existed back then, we would have gone after it. I really want to give credit to Tom following that process. A lot of the burden of that process is put on the neighborhood sponsor to do the notifications, go get the signatures, get them notarized. It's a high barrier. It took time. It took a lot of time and neighbors coming together. The application fees too, neighborhood fundraised for that. So it's a pretty high barrier. And I can't speak to the notification process the city did, but I know the city told Tom that, hey, it'd be nice if you gave Todd Kaufman a call and let him know. And I'm pretty sure Tom did that. So he knew. I have plenty of signs on my property also talking about this. I will still allow more density in the form of additional single-family units. Subdivisions can still happen. I was also under the impression ADUs were allowed, and I will say Tom was very clear about that. I also verified that independently with city staff, so I would want that to be conditioned, making it very clear that ADUs are still allowed with this special permit. Overall, I think this permit is still compatible with our surrounding uses, which are single-family homes. And I really don't anticipate any challenges with public utilities or anything like that. So this is neighborhood driven. We have come together where the majority of people saying this is what we want. This is a process that was made and we're following it, and we just ask that you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Shanna Bircher is in favor. Corey Hallett is in favor and did not wish to speak. Al Mesbah
You're getting it.
Am I close at all?
You're getting used to
You
it.
go to penmanship school.
I know, my I can't read my handwriting either. Don't worry about it. I'm a computer guy.
If nothing else, you're entertaining when I see you here, so
Well,
go
thank
right
you.
ahead.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to address a couple of things. For one thing, Mr. Kaufman needs to do a lot more work because he's changing our neighborhood. We should have less to do because we're trying to keep our neighborhood. So that's one answer to some of the points that was given earlier. The other thing is, I don't think the message is kind of getting through for some reason. They're completely right. You, in your wisdom, have voted for us at least twice, and then once the city council, and barred their development. The whole point we are making over and over again is we are not against development. It is how much development. No, this thing that we're doing here tonight is not going to put an end to their thing. That wasn't the purpose of it. What we are trying to do is we are trying to protect our neighborhood. You've heard all these people talk about it. This is serious. We are all friends. All the people that have signed are here. Incidentally, 2 of those red properties that you were talking about earlier, one of them wants to rezone. That's why they didn't want to do this. They want to go even further. And the other one later supported us, but it was past our, when we filed. So 2 of those red blocks aren't really red in reality. One of them wants to go further than we are doing here, and the other one is supporting us now, but it was too late for the presentation. So anyway, the point is that we are trying, the roads, you've seen the pictures of 17th Street. We've told you how it's an alley. It is not a street. Go look at it. The traffic in that area the roads are not developed there to handle the high density. I don't care what you want to call it. You want to call it, we're doing this because it's in the code. I'll be honest with you. That's my view of it. I am all for the lady who wants to rezone. I don't even know why this was set R12. I know it was done ages ago. I've owned that property for decades. I bought that in the 80s. So, whoever came up with the zoning, fine, whatever. But so what? It is important that we meet the personality of our neighborhoods, or we're going to lose it. What's the point? Why are people moving to Coeur d'Alene? Because it's a beautiful, wonderful place. They don't want to be in LA. And we are trying to build LA again here. That is exactly what we're doing with this high-density stuff. And no, that is not, research after research shows children do better in homes with yards. They need to go outside. Myopia is caused by people not being outside enough. All kinds of health problems, all kinds of problems. It affects personality of the town. We are losing our town to a bunch of rich people that want to build and build and build. I want responsible development. I'm not saying don't build, but build responsibly. We are going to have food shortages. Our weather is changing. We went up another growing zone, by the way. Anybody paying attention? We're now 7A.
Yeah, we are.
When I moved here, we were 5. You know what difference that is? We were zone 5, growing zone. Now we're 7A. We're like California. That is not going away. This COVID thing was just
Mr.
a
Chair.
warm-up.
Yes, sir.
On behalf of the rest of the citizens who had a chance to speak tonight, I want to make sure that we don't extend too much
No
for
problem.
Big Al as compared to everyone else.
Okay.
Thanks.
Oh, okay. Anyone else who's here who did not sign up, come on up. And just sign the sheet later before you leave.
I just happened in because in the library I ran into, say, Rich Dad that is in this neighborhood, and happened to come in and just listen. Well, this is where this actual, these things take place. Okay, interesting. I'm just curious on the process. Like I've spent way too much time around attorneys. And we know about, okay, you're supposed to give notice to the public, right? Like a due process issues. And the first thing I notice when you guys come in, first thing you're doing is adding like ADUs to this program. Like, that wasn't noticed to the public, was it? Like, that seems like you'd have to step back, re-give everybody notice, like refile that, give everybody notice again, and give them notice of all what the plan is, like not just, oops, yep, we're changing, we're throwing a couple things in here and there. I don't know, ask a question for the, I guess I'll go ahead and just in the process go, hey, I object to you not giving notice of what was actually happening at this meeting to the public. Like, maybe we can have a chat with this fine city attorney. But you've got, I've spent 25 years in that neighborhood just because I got to go visit, Rich Dad. You got Nettleton Gulch, which is the thoroughfare. I spent 25 years, trying to turn left on 15th, especially around 5 o'clock, Like that's always been a gauntlet as it is. And maybe on Friday or Saturday when the couple hundred people that are drinking and riding motorcycles or doing whatever they're doing up there are trying to come back through. Like, it's a little bit of a, probably one of the more sketchy traffic spots in that area. Like, you've trying to add ADUs to a spot, which, obviously you're developing. But is your survey and engineering being done for now adding ADUs? Like this guy, the great guy from the city who brought up and said, hey, yeah, they went through all this, they put through all the process.
Please step up to the microphone.
They put forward the engineering and survey and whatnot to be able to do these sorts of things, yet you've changed it immediately. First thing you guys did here is change the whole process, which should send it back to giving notice back to the people of what was actually happening here. Just a due process, objecting to that and saying, hey, let's just follow the rules, give the people notice in their due process to come here for those hearings. Good luck with this guy.
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
I would like to say that I have great confidence in our city attorney and our city management. I'm just responding, it's nice to get free legal advice. But I have confidence in our city, our management, that they follow the notice rules. And if they didn't, shame on them, and they will confess it. They will find out. They will say, no, we made a mistake, and I'll do it over again. Secondly, there are things that we can do up here when things are presented to us that if we choose to do it, we can add conditions. Those conditions come up from our discussions. They are not in the agenda. They are things that come up from the meeting, and that's the purpose of the meeting. So that's nice. Thank you.
I have no one else signed. Oh, come on up if you want to.
Mr. Chairman, I think some people signed the other hearing item that maybe wanted to speak on this one because we have a very lengthy list. So there's, yeah, I think it was him.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'll go grab that.
So
one.
if anyone wants to come up and speak that might have signed up on a wrong sheet, just make sure you
Get a new sheet going.
sign up. They have another sheet there. Just sign up later.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
My name is Joe Archambault. I live in Best Hills Meadows. I'm president of the HOA. Tom has supported us with our battle for a gas station at the corner of 15th and Best. He has gone through all the work pertaining to this. I don't see the problem making it the way he wants it. A single-family homes. You can have people, as you just heard a little bit ago, spouting about the fact that he's putting up 10 in one spot and all that other stuff. It's a money grab. It just doesn't make sense. These people have a beautiful neighborhood, and they enjoy their neighborhood. I think if the one woman said about the affordable housing, that's the problem. You see the median home prices now in Coeur d'Alene, it's about $850,000. Not many people are going to be able to afford that. I'm just here to support him, the work that he's done. He's kept my entire neighborhood in the loop when it came to that. As for the Hayden Canyon, I don't know, but you're proud of it. That's all that counts. Have a good night.
Hey, who else wants to come up and speak? Come on up. And just see Hillary after you get done speaking to sign the sheet.
I already signed in, but I said no speak, but I want to change my
Oh,
mind if I may.
what's your name?
My name is Edwin Ronningen.
Okay.
The G is kind of in there.
All right, go right ahead.
I actually live just outside of the area. I live on East Steiner. I've lived there since May of 1988. We currently have 3 sets of duplexes on the little section between 15th and 17th. With the addition of Kaufman Estates coming in with 9 twin homes, 18 units, whatever, you're looking at an addition of possibly 18 to 36 vehicles traversing Steiner every day, in and out, because it is the straight route. They're not going to turn and go down little gravelly 17th or go up the single-lane alley to Nettleton Gulch. We've already seen it with them pulling their dump trucks through as they cleared the land and took the house out. We had multiple dump trucks running up and down Steiner for several days while that was going on. We have little kids that play in the street. We have next door to us a family with 2 small children. Across the street, kind of catty-corner from us, another family with 2 small children. And there's another family down below us that have, I think there's 3 or 4 small children. And these kids play in the street because it is a safe neighborhood. If we start throwing all this extra traffic, which adding 9 houses, 9 twin houses, 18 houses, you're going to have traffic. It's going to happen. And I'm just waiting for one of these little kids to get squished on the road by somebody using Steiner as a drag strip. So that's my considerations on that. Like I say, I live just to the west of the proposed area. I am in favor of holding this to single-family dwellings. That's our neighborhood. Even though I'm outside of that area, I consider myself part of that neighborhood. It's rural, it's older. My house was built in '70. It's still very useful. We've raised our family there, 5 kids, and we're still there. So thank you for your considerations.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak before I give the applicant, Tom, a chance to come up to add anything else before I close public testimony on it? Tom, you want to come up and add anything? or
Mr.
you
Chairman,
good?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Could we take a 5-minute break?
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. I'm going to reconvene this meeting on this particular issue. And at this time, in lieu of some new information that I'll share with you, I'm going to close this public hearing this evening. The public notices were failed to be all-inclusive and sent out to everyone that needed to get notice of this public hearing within the area that we're talking about. So we are going to close this meeting, and we're going to re-notice again to everyone that is affected by this particular application. So at this point, this meeting for the
ADUs.
SP-1-24 is closed.
And we're also going to add back in the ADU.
The new
verbiage.
public notice will be sent out addressing ADUs
ADUs
as well.
It'll be inclusive.
I'm sorry for this delay in this particular hearing, but we need to reschedule it, and those notices will be sent out. Randy, do you have anything you need to add, or? Okay.
Sorry, we were just
Sure.
trying to determine the
Okay.
correct procedure for it. So because there was an issue with the noticing, we'll need to just hold a new hearing, and it'll be on the July 9th would be the earliest we could have that hearing. So we will do new notices, as you indicated. We'll make sure everyone within the boundaries, as well as the 300-foot boundary, receives the notice, and those get mailed out 15 days prior. And then, yeah, it'd be held July 9th. So again, no communication with the community and with the commission members, so ex parte communication
Right,
would
and
be in
then
effect.
at that, what was that date again? July?
July 9th.
July 9th, public testimony could be heard again.
Correct.
And the same process.
That is correct.
Okay, just look for your notices, and please come back on July 9th.
Sorry.
Sorry. Okay, next item on our agenda is the applicant is City of Coeur d'Alene, and it's an amendment to Municipal Code 17.9.340.
Wait just a minute.
Okay, Hillary?
Oh, boy. Darn, that's a first. Have you ever had that done before?
What's that?
Have you ever had this happen before? No, me neither. Never.
But because I saw a lot what was starting to hear, they're trying to hang around us.
Yes.
One little small thing, they always try to justify what they can.
Yeah. Hold on just a minute.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
This is a first.
I think it's a very pleasant statement.
Well, these poor people have fought
It's
hard.
Okay.
Great. Well, hello. So this is item 01-24. It's Appeal Hearing Procedures Amendment. So a little bit of background on this. The City Council was scheduled to have an appeal hearing on a Design Review Commission approval, and that went before City Council, and City Council decided that they wanted to have public testimony, and the code does not allow for that, so they had to continue that hearing, and they directed staff to prepare an amendment to the zoning code to allow for the public, in addition to the appellant, the applicant, and staff, to participate in an appeal hearing on a design review decision. And so staff drafted that, and because the Planning and Zoning Commission, per our city code as well as state statutes, is directed to make recommendations, come up with code amendments, and also if the council directs code amendments to the zoning code in particular, that the commission needs to have a hearing and make a recommendation to the city council on that item. So as you see, and I can kind of scroll through on the screen for the public, if the public is still here. There's a couple of things just clarifying the current code related to, again, it's specifically for design review decisions that are appealed to the city council. So a few things just kind of clarifying the process there. And then this one is just clarifying that the mayor may establish time limits. And this also clarifies on item D, the burden of proof. that it doesn't, anyone who's testifying, the appellant or anyone from the public, could not speak to items that can't be changed by the Design Review Commission. So they can't talk about traffic, they can't talk about parking, floor area ratio, which is the FAR, zoning code requirements, other things like that. So those things are clarified as well. But the big thing is really just to allow that the members of the public may participate in the appeal hearings as well. So that's on item C. So the thing with this is there is, I guess, Commissioner Ward asked the question, like, what was the rationale for this? How was this originally derived? So the code that is in effect now came into effect in 2008. So the city had hired a consultant to help with coming up with the downtown core, development standards and design guidelines, as well as design review procedures. And so it was put into effect at that time that the appeals would be limited to the appellant, the applicant, and staff, and also that it would be a non-de novo hearing, so it would be based on the testimony from the previous hearing. So there was a public hearing that would be held with the Design Review Commission, and then if it was appealed by some party that's affected, then the appeal would be noticed, would go on to City Council, and it wouldn't be open to the full public. It would be, as I mentioned, just limited to the appellant, and they would have to specify why. The burden of proof is on them, and then the applicant could testify, and then staff would provide information as well. So that's how that came to be. But as mentioned, the City Council has asked for staff to bring forward this amendment for Planning Commission to make a recommendation. And then this item, because it's time sensitive, because the appeal hearing on the Marriott Hotel that was brought forward by Joan Woodard is needing to happen quickly. That'll be June 4th. We need this item to come before this body this evening. It'll go to City Council next week to either go into effect or not. And then the appeal hearing will take place on the 4th of June.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the initial DRC presentation, the appellate, how long a time of duration do they have to speak as, their concerns? How long do they get to speak when they raise issues?
The code did not
Is there a time?
specify that. So, and Randy, please chime in if you have any additional information. But when we have provided guidance for appeal hearings that have happened, we've provided kind of the guidance for the appellant, the procedure for that, just clarifying who would be in what order. So we have the city attorney has kind of presented the information just from the staff perspective, and then the appellant goes, and then the applicant, and then the appellant can kind of rebuttal, and then it would close at that point.
And this doesn't
hearing.
change what the public can say or not say as far as what's relevant to the design review, what's the Design Review Commission's criteria. They still should only address that. You can't stop them from talking about anything else.
Right.
But the city council has to only take into consideration what's relevant to the design review criteria. And so that still stays the same. It's just.
That is correct. So no new evidence is to be presented in the appeal hearing under the current code or under this proposed amendment. And even the current code, even just for a hearing with the Design Review Commission, says the testimony is not supposed to be on anything that's not specific to the Design Review Commission, but that is difficult to limit.
Yeah, it's difficult to limit anyone's comments, whether it's relevant or not relevant. And so I just wanted to make that clear.
I'm curious how this differs from if someone appeals one of our decisions. Like, how is ours the same way where they can't? This one's just like a little bubble that's different, or?
Right, your decisions and staff decisions don't currently allow the public to participate in the hearings either. So the only two that we found in the code that do allow it are the one that is Rathdrum Prairie Aquifer. There's a section of the code that is relating to someone who's operating a facility over the aquifer. And if an administrative decision, so if I make a decision that it's not appropriate, they could appeal that. It would go to a hearing officer, so it's different. It wouldn't go to city council under that provision. And then there's a section of our code that's under the administrative section, and that one is called Rules of Procedure. So that's that section 1.11.010. And that one, it seems to imply that the public is allowed to testify, but I don't know if that was specific to public hearings or appeal hearings.
So this would be the only one that would have, of the different appeal procedures that would have public comment?
That is specifically an appeal hearing of that nature.
This is,
Well,
Randy?
I just
This
wonder
is-
if we're
this
making,
is
if
the
you're
on-
making one that's like
Yeah,
different than
one's
the
different.
rest.
Right.
This is the only one where it specifically says who can testify or speak at an appeal. So most of the appeal ordinances are silent as to who talks. So, and I can't recall now offhand how the city council handles things, but in a public hearing, if an appeal is a public hearing, council has generally allowed the public to speak.
Right, so would it be better to match it to the others where they're all silent and they all are interpreted the same? Instead of, I mean, then if you.
Maybe, but we drafted this on the direction of city council and the mayor.
And
Oh,
this
okay,
is,
because it just feels like then if you state the public in here, then when you compare it to the others later, it's going to assume that the public can't go on those because they're not stated when one of them states that the public can speak.
Well, I would say that I think it's the opposite, that it would be assumed that in a public hearing, the public could speak unless it specifically says otherwise.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting to have them all written differently, so.
Well, and during the DRC review, they come up to the mic, they describe what their issues are with it. I'm assuming, like we do, that we should be taking note of that and responding to that. If there's dead silence, I understand that they'd want a second crack at it. But reality is, we give the DRC the responsibility to address that public concern. And we should close that and put a nice knot around it and hand it on. To have a second chance and that, I think that puts shade on that DRC, because you've given them the right and the responsibility to see and promote that vision for the city. And they should take it on board and respond to it just like we have to, but sometimes we don't always win. And I don't think you should get a second crack at it. It's on the record, you've made your response, you hope that the DRC comes up and says yes or no, and why they're saying yes or no, close the issue and move it on. We could just keep running this on forever, and this is what's happening now and now. And I understand the public has their chance. Do it. Get there on the front end, do it. But don't keep getting to kick at the cat, because it just draws this process out and it costs those people money. I mean, we're doing this with this developer. He's ready to run out and, I don't know, light his hair on fire.
But they're currently, if someone appeals our decision, they're allowing public comment currently.
Well,
So, I mean-
but it's the second the appellate gets a second crack at it. They've already done their first comments. The DRC takes it on board, either accepts it or changes it or responds to it. But why should they then go back to the city and open that door again? I think that denotes discontent with the DRC. It shades them. You've given them that responsibility. I think they own it. And now by putting this, it's like, well, we don't really respect the DRC, so let's do this all over again with other people who don't do this all the time. The DRC was built with people who do it all the time. They're experienced, they're knowledgeable, they're there to serve that purpose. And now you're handing on to people who don't do it all the time. And now they're now raised up. I don't get that. I mean, maybe I've been in architecture too long, but to me, that just puts shade on it.
and is this amendment change to the code just for the design review?
It is, it's
Only.
specific
Yeah,
to the
it's an
design review.
exception. Yeah.
And if when it was at city council, I would imagine city council had access to the design review meeting for the Marriott, and all the public comments were made at that time, so they were able to read those public comments. And I'm all for public comments on posted meetings and stuff, but I have to agree with Lynn a little bit on this particular one, that the council had the opportunity to read all those public comments, and whether those, as I stated before, some of those public comments are going to not be relative to what the issue is, and they're going to hear those things again. So, I mean, I'm all for public input on any hearing. I'm a little off-centered on this one and how it came about, but that's my opinion. I think the Design Review Committee did their job, and we listened to all the public testimony at that particular time, and we made our correct decision. The Design Review Commission made the correct decision, and again, I believe that the city council had the opportunity to read all the public testimony at that time, and now they're going to hear it again, and hopefully they can weed out what is relative to whatever the appeal process is when it comes back to city council in a couple of weeks. Go ahead.
Been quite a few years since I served on the Design Review Commission, and I have to believe that this is the only appeal that was ever filed from that group. But it's really important. There are a couple of issues that came to mind when I first learned about this. Now, and I understand every person here in the city council, they'll let anyone speak. And in any public forum, generally. But an appeal hearing from the Development Review Committee is different. And it's not just that someone said it is. What they're reviewing is different, because the current code states that the city council review of the Design Review Commission shall be based on the record developed before the commission. That's what they go to. No new evidence, and specifically states no new evidence is to be submitted. But public wants to step and say, well, I agree, or whether they say, well, I don't like it now, but I couldn't go to, that's just not right. Mm-hmm. And I just feel that to that extent, the change is not effective. Now, I don't care about the change, to be honest with you, and I'll tell you why in a second. The Design Review Commission record, in listening to the appellant explain, in my understanding, according to the appellant, had to be done incorrectly. It wasn't, that you approved lot coverage, FAR, or something that's out there. It's, don't like the look of the building. Well, that's really getting pretty technical as far as, what kind of a basis is that for an appeal? Although I certainly don't object and let anyone do that if they choose to. Now, some appeals to the city council are different, and that's what you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And that's why I asked earlier about de novo. Most zoning hearings that I've been involved in, when they get to on an appeal to the county commission or city commission, they're treated as brand new. It's like a new application. All new information, retestimony, new testimony, all of it can go in. That's not the case with the DRC, or with the development review. And it's all strictly based on the record. You can read the record, you can certainly listen to the appellant, listen to the city staff, and make a decision. Now, the only change that I read in this ordinance that's being proposed is now we include the words, and members of the public may participate in the appeal. The reason for an appeal is the same. I didn't see that being changed in the current ordinance. It's still based on the record. What does the proposal really achieve, or does it make the city council review any better? I don't think so. They're still supposed to be ruling based upon the record at the Design Review Commission. Mm-hmm. Like I say, if they want to include that, like Tom says, a lot of people will talk, and a lot of it may be irrelevant, but I guess they can listen to it. That's one issue. It's just the reason doing it itself. The other one is that, I have bought and been involved in land use and planning for about 50 years now. Can't believe that, but that's the truth. And I think about different hearings I was involved in and lawyers that I worked with. And I see this as a real problem, and that it could, in effect, create a delay, not just for Marriott, whoever, any application.
Anybody.
If they choose to allow this change, creates a delay in the hearing going forward and being approved. Mm-hmm. Now that results in potentially two things. The developer has to pay a high interest rate, mm-hmm. and has to pay a lot more money, or they can't get the project completed on the date scheduled. So whatever revenue they would have gained over that period of time, developers always say time is money. And what I'm telling you, I heard 1,000 times when I was working with the developers, you gotta get it, you gotta get it. And I think, that's true, but the problem with it here is that, I'll give you an example. I'm driving my car in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, and I'm doing 39 miles an hour. Police officer stops me, writes me a ticket. And I think, 4 miles, that's not much. I'm going to appeal it and go to court. So now I go to the court, and the judge, this is wrong. I was only 4 miles over the limit. I was doing 39. And he said, no, 2 days ago, we changed the speed limit to 25. So you were 14 miles over the limit. And what we're doing here is like changing the criteria after they've already gone through the process in accordance with current procedures. And I think that's a problem. Now, if this ordinance is approved, like I say, I have no problem letting the public talk. Maintaining those guidelines were very difficult, I think, for the mayor, whoever, to kind of keep it under control. But to me, it could only apply to any appeals of any kind that are already pending. If we're doing to someone who's already in the process, I think there's a potential problem and a potential liability for the city. I want to pay the lawyer here, Randy, but I sat on that side of the table a number of times and had people tell me that. So I just have a hard time with what this can lead to. I think it's a very bad precedent to set.
Yeah, I watched that council meeting. I mean, currently it's tabled. The item is tabled, and I do struggle with changing the rules while the item is tabled in order to talk about it and then continue the item that's tabled. It's similar to us saying we can't talk to people when we leave the room. So I don't mind changing the rule. Maybe it makes more sense to have it this way. I feel like maybe just leave it like the others, where if at their discretion they can listen to public comment, and is probably more consistent. But I don't like changing the rules while it's tabled. I feel like that sets an interesting precedent that you just table something, change a rule, and then bring it back. But when they appealed, the rule was clear. So, I mean, the timing is kind of funny on this one, for me at least. But
And that is a legal question that's been addressed. There is Idaho Supreme Court precedent
Okay.
that says that you can change procedural matters that do not affect the substantive rights of a party, and they would apply. And to allow other people to testify does not affect a substantive right of the party. There's just more people talking. If we were to change the standard of appeal, if we were to say, yes, now you can bring new evidence, you can do this and that, or that would be changing a substantive right on the appeal. And we're not doing that. We're simply changing who can talk, and that's a procedural matter. So I don't see that as a problem with the amendment.
Well, but during the meeting, they made a motion to allow an exception to allow public comment, and that wasn't acceptable. But this is, like, I think they're that's confusing to me how that.
I agree. And also, if the appellant made comment at the original meeting, there's a lag time. Now they can build their forces to show up in that audience and rig it. So I disagree with that. That the appellant has an independent thought and they present it to the DRC. But in the meantime, in the lag time between appearing at that meeting and getting recordation and response, they now can build their forces. And that, to me, is, again, it shouldn't occur. I think the appellant may have a problem. They can do singular comment, but that's it. I don't think we should broaden wide it open, because, again, you are tearing apart the DRC's role. And that, in and of itself, is I just don't understand it. Otherwise, you're dissolving the DRC and you're just sending it out to a dogfight. I don't think this should be done. I don't think there should be any change. I think it should be as is. Appellant shows up, discusses what they mentioned to the DRC, end of story. It's just too much. There's a lag time there, and there's a building of forces, and that's not what we need.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. First, Phil, I appreciate your comment. I see it a little different just from a business standpoint. The DRC is different than the council, and they're appointed and the council is elected. There's a heck of a difference. Now, they're very knowledgeable. I would put our DRC against anybody's in the country. They're great. But the ultimate authority is with the council. And it should be. And one wonderful thing about local government, and we saw it tonight, and we're going to see it in July, is public commentary. So I'm, you know, I hear Phil's comment. I hear yours, Lynn, but I'm not so sure I share your and Tom's view. It's different. But I think public comment is good, and if it turns out to be a detriment to the developers, don't you think the council is going to hear that? Don't you think they'll want to change the rules? You got that right. Anyway, that's my opinion, so I certainly support this. I also support it because the council is recommending it, so there you go.
Yeah, I go back to it, the public testimony was part of the record, and the public testimony could be read by city council. And to open it up, to have additional public comment, have to agree with Commissioner Fleming on that one. It's like, you know, changing in midstream. And this is directly related to the Design Review Commission only, and no other appeal process that's.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with public, I mean, I think,
Right.
I don't mind the public comment if they want to hear it. They can sit and hear hours of public comment. I don't like changing the rule for an open hearing that's like tabled. That doesn't make me feel like that's the right process there. And maybe it's fine, but if it was fine, then I feel like they could have allowed an exception at the last meeting. But if it read basically just striking that sentence that says, although the hearing is open to members of the public, no general comment will be taken. If that sentence is just stricken from the record, then it's the same as the other appeal procedures. And then would that allow them, if they felt like during the meeting and there's a bunch of people in the room and they want to hear it, then they could make an exception, I would think. And it would allow the council that discretion.
But it's like you're reopening the DRC. You've wide opened the DRC's role. So you're negating the DRC's role. You're now reopening it all, and it's fair game. I think that you ought to just deal with the appellant. The appellant does their thing at DRC, and then they go, and if there's a challenge, they go in front of the court. But it should not reopen this entirely. And that's what you're doing by handing it to the city and just saying, anybody can talk, go ahead. They should show up at the DRC, end of story. And if they have an issue and they want to challenge it, they go into the city as an appellant, not as just a broad spectrum, here we go again. You know, they've had their chance, just like everyone else here, one time, show up and be an appellant.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. Despite what I said, I guess, if the council wants this, I don't think it's my job to say you shouldn't do this. I have no problem with this going to the council to be reviewed. I think it should be limited that one of two things. Either it only applies to future hearings, nothing that is pending, whether it's Marriott or whatever, or I don't know what their procedures are. It simply be declared a de novo hearing, the way most of them are. And they rehear everything over again if that's what they want. But as far as the code change itself, to me, the council has asked for it. I would send it forward with the caveats that I have mentioned this evening.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean,
Well, any further discussion? Okay.
Are you going to take public comment?
We can take public comment on this particular item, sure.
Is
If you
it
signed
public
up.
hearing?
The sheets right there. That does the.
we would love public comment.
It's a public hearing, so we do have to formally take the public
Signature.
comment and
Yeah.
have them swear in.
All right, thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
Randy, I don't know if she's got that sheet? Not that many people here.
There's 17 names on here, Mr. Chair.
Get ready, round two.
Okay. Susan Knudsen, come on up. Do you solemnly swear to say the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go right
Thank
ahead.
you. I'm Suzanne Knutson, 4208 West Appaloosa Road in Coeur d'Alene. I was at the city council meeting where that request was made, and there were a lot of people there that would have liked to speak. I don't know a ton about the design review committee, but I do know that they are appointed, as Commissioner Littrip said, and I think that the appeal process is a legitimate process of due process. And I don't know if the Design Review Commission is a public hearing. I know they're held at noon in the middle of the day where not a lot of people can get there. I've never been able to go. I have a job. They're regular hours for the most part. But I don't think that people within 300 feet are notified of that design review. But I could be wrong. I don't know. But
Well, let me clarify before you continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll let Hillary answer some of this. I'm very familiar with the Design Review Commission. I've been on it for many, many years. But Hillary, as far as public notice goes and what the process is, the design review is very limited in its scope.
Right.
I don't know if you read the guidelines for design review.
I have.
So you can see what we look at, and that's what our decisions are based on. And
Right.
that's what this particular hearing we had was based on. There was a lot of comment. It was a 3-hour meeting, a lot of public comment that had really no relevance to what we should look at as design review. And we made that announcement. Tammy, who was from staff, made that announcement, but people kept coming up, which is fine, but speaking on stuff. And we just can't say, well, I don't stop anyone from speaking.
Right.
So you speak, you say your stuff, and we have to take in what's supposed to be relevant, which is in the public record that city council could have had. Hillary, go ahead about the notices.
Yes, so it is a public hearing, and it does have the noticing, the mailing within 300 feet. We post the site, we publish in the paper. The appeal hearings are not required to do that, but we have been doing that to make sure everybody gets all of their notice.
Right. And I think some of the things that came up, though, at the appeal were that the things that the design review were not considering, like the traffic and the parking issues, because they're not part of the design review.
That's right.
And I think that was part of the conversation was, and I mean, you can hear
But that
sometimes
doesn't
grumblings.
change. That is not going to change in the appeal.
Right, I know that. And so I'm wondering if the design review process might actually be the thing that needs
That's
to
a
change
different-
and not the appeal process.
That's a
what I'm
different
trying to say.
question down. That could certainly
So-
be addressed
I don't know.
later
But,
on.
But I have a question that's not related to this. So in 2008, well, it sort of is. It's about the appeal process. In 2018, December, I sat here with about 125 other citizens who were not in favor of the river's edge going in off of Celtice. And the Planning Commission did not vote on that night. They just sent it to City Council. So nobody had the opportunity to appeal anything when that happened. So if the appeal process has changed and things are, I think, but we hear all the time at City Council, at Planning Commission, codes need to change and zones need to change and the height of building needs to change. And some of these places were zoned a long time ago, kind of randomly. We're not really sure why that was an R12 over at Kaufman Estates, but that's what it is. So we hear those things all the time, but maybe it's time to tighten the ship a little bit. Maybe it's time to tighten up on some of those things. Like Commissioner McCracken said, it's why is the appeal, where the public can comment on this appeal but not of this appeal? How can we take some time to tighten those things up? Because it might be time to do that. I think part of the people who were appealing the Marriott weren't part of the conversation, probably because they didn't live here when that was approved in the first place. But now the parking and things have grown quite rapidly here since that happened. And I think there are some other extenuating circumstances because it's taken so long for that to happen. So there's just a lot going on, and you guys have that's a lot on your shoulders. But I do think that the appeal process is a good part of the due process, and I think public comment is important too. So thanks for hearing me tonight. I appreciate you.
Can we make a motion?
Yeah, because I have a lot of people, there's only 5 people
You
here.
gotta throw all the
I-
sheets
I
of
don't
public
I think
anyone else wants
there
to-
was 2 other names that were on there.
I have Susan Knudsen, and then I have, is it
We have
Carrie
Sam.
Duttman? Is that in favor? I don't know if is this one?
2 sheets, so Sam's on one
Yeah,
of them.
that is for this one. Carrie,
Then we
yeah,
had
Carrie
another Fred.
Duttman is in favor but does not wish to speak. Edwin Rodenberg, I'm sorry, is in favor, does not wish to speak. And my favorite speaker, Al Mesba, did I even get it close?
You are pretty close.
Pretty close?
I've been called a lot worse.
Is in favor and does want to speak. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's been great to hear all the discussion going on actually this evening about this. I think the solution is a little principle that this nation was pretty much built on. It's called subsidiarity. And it is basically dealing with making decisions at the lowest level possible. And I think the problem we're having with citizens probably getting upset about the system, you know, and coming up with comments about things that, like you said, it has really nothing to do with that particular thing that you're doing. You're going through the design, you know, do you want to do this kind of window or that kind of window? And somebody's making a comment about parking. And so that is disruptive. On the other hand, you got to look at it this way. You are our local government. Who are you serving? It is the people you are serving. If they are having a problem with the way you're organizing things, is because the way you're organizing things does not meet their needs. That's what your job is. So I agree. I think the whole process needs to change. You need to think about, why are we here? We are here because we love Coeur d'Alene. We are here, all of us, because we want to improve this town, because we want to save the good things about it. We want to progress to higher levels and make it better and make it easier and whatever that means to everybody. Everybody has their own image. You know, some people want more trees, some people want better grass, or whatever it is. The point is that when you have a meeting and a large number of people seem to make comments that don't relate to what your narrow ideas have been, to put it, you're doing it for them. You know, that's what we need to think about. I really think we need to think about, who are we serving? The people. And I think our country as a whole is going the wrong way because we are missing this. We're getting into these technical, you know, details of the codes and all this stuff, and we're forgetting the important thing. Safety, kids, families, people being happy. That's really what we're doing here. That's what you're doing here. That's what you have been doing here. I've watched you do it. And that is, I think that really helps to keep that in mind. Just saying.
Okay, thank you. I have no one else, so I'm going to close public testimony on this, bring it to, oh, we have. Oh, you're on here? All right, come on up, come on up. Just state your name.
It's got too many sheets.
My name is Frederick McLaren,
Okay, go right ahead.
and I live at 601 Front Street
Okay,
in Parkside.
uh-huh,
And I live in apartment 601,
all right.
okay? And it's a very lovely place. I've been there 4 years. And I did fill out the paper here, so you
Okay,
should
that's
have.
fine.
My wife and I, Dawn, we showed up at our apartment about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and their newspaper was sitting there at the concierge office, and there's a picture of the hotel. Coeur d'Alene's hotel is Marriott's proof. And I looked, and I said, wow, hadn't been here for 3 weeks, and going to be a hotel bill there. Hadn't seen anything. A couple days later, I go over and see Tracy. I slept on it for a while. And I said, tell me about the hotel. She was very nice. She provided me with the entire file. And I apologized to her because I said I didn't get any notice that there was a hearing. But when I returned to my office, or to my office in my condo, there was my old mail, and certainly the notice was there. So I was advised. The thing that was shocking to me was that it was advised, approved, done. The deal is over. And the reports I reviewed in Tammy's office were gorgeous. Here's the application, and here's the staff analysis. Every box was checked. How high is the building? What's the setback? What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? All checked, all done. As you just said, Mr. Chairman, that's your job. When I will look out of my condo to the north, I will see a wall about 20 feet from my windows on the entire north side of my condo, from my bedroom and from my living area. When I go out onto the patio, I will see the rooftop eating area exposed, plus the restaurant, plus the corner of the building, which is white, which will be about 20 feet from my...
You have to stand in front of the mic, otherwise they won't. Thank
Okay.
you, I'm sorry.
Now, there are other condos there that'll be affected in the same way. I'm not a real estate expert, but I estimate the value of my condo will be reduced by at least $500,000. And there will be others that are in the same position. Now, when I reviewed the staff report, I saw nothing which addressed or even spoke to the impact of this building on values at Parkside, my condo or others. I saw nothing on the problems in the alley with this, that will be between the condo and the Parkside condos and hotel that addresses the traffic and noise and garbage and issues from the only exit from the hotel, which is right there in that one-way alley. I saw nothing that addresses the issue of cars coming out of there onto 7th and 6th, with all the kids and all the people coming from here and the parks and the marina going to the downtown areas all summer long. Yes, you checked every box. I'm surprised to hear you say that you would not like the council or somebody to address the issue of, do you really have to fill the entire block with no entrance to the hotel, no exits to the hotel, because that's what your rules say, and that's the bottom line, and it's over? And in the financial aspects, not even addressed. So I think that the issue is a little broader than checking the boxes that, yes, it's less than 200 feet, yes, it's this, yes, it's 10 feet back from the street, yes, it's this, yes, in this area, we can do whatever we want as long as we are within these dimensions. I think your role is a little broader than that, or it should be. So I think I've taken my time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I don't think there's anyone else that wants to speak. I'm going to close public testimony and bring it to commissioners for further discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Hillary, I got a kind of a question for you probably, and it has to do with something I struggle with in our role of people coming up and looking at what the staff has decided based on a proposal and saying something different. And it typically comes in the form of traffic or safety, water runoff, any one of those things where qualified engineers or qualified individuals have looked at the requirements and seen how this project proposal is challenged by those requirements and whether it meets them or not. And that is a different perspective than what someone might think is appropriate or what's currently appropriate or what the current situation is. So there's a difference between what's appropriate and what it currently is. And in those cases where the current state is more safe than what's safe is still safe, but it's not as safe as it is right now, or more demand and traffic, in those situations, we are hearing something that we really have no control over. In the same way, I suspect that there's similar discussions from the Design Review Commission's abilities to look at a project and say, here's what we're focused on, but outside of the scope of those things, how does the public get to a point where they're able to interface with the policymakers and express their interests in a manner that informs the decision makers, the policy holders, or the public servants, and reflects the public's comments in that purview? How does that happen? Because I think it almost sounds like that's what's going on here. And I must admit, I'm a little confused, but it sounds like that's what's going on, is that the public feels like their voice is not being heard, or they're not allowed to speak in a manner that addresses their concerns to the people that are making decisions.
Yes. I'll attempt to answer that, and hopefully it'll make sense to you and for the public that's listening too. So I think a lot of it is probably just not understanding where the public has opportunities to participate in the process. So we obviously have the public hearings, so there's the Design Review Commission has those, your commission has hearings, City Council does as well, but where they have concerns largely might be in the development of a code itself, or in the comprehensive plan. When we were working on the comprehensive plan, trying to get the community involved, we want your input. How should we grow? Where should development happen? Things like that. And the comprehensive plan includes the goals and the objectives, so it helps guide future code amendments. So for things like the downtown, I think a lot of the concern for the Marriott is not the design review process itself. It's they don't like that you can go 200 feet tall, that you can have, the intensity of development in downtown in certain areas. They're concerned with the traffic. And the traffic is not something to do with the Design Review Commission. And we required, staff did a traffic study be done for that. And this traffic study actually showed that the traffic from that would be less than what was even modeled by Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization. But those are, it's difficult because that information can't be shared in the hearing per se, because that's not part of the purview, right? So I think a lot of the concerns are what's currently in the code and where to participate. So when we've been tasked already by City Council to work on reevaluating the downtown for not only the development standards, but design review guidelines. And so this commission will be asked to participate along with Design Review Commission and our Historic Preservation Commission to provide some input on, should we look at heights, tower spacing, things like that, setbacks, materials, what are the things that are appropriate for that? But I think there probably is a disconnect where the public doesn't feel like they're getting their voices heard, but a lot of it is in a different step in the process. And so for this, it's already approved because the downtown development standards exist, the downtown design guidelines exist, and so developers have the right to build if they go through that one step in the process for design review approval.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it also, it goes back to the criteria, the design review, which was established many years ago, and the city has changed. So, yeah, so we might have to change the design review criteria, what we look at. But again, it's, sometimes things only come to design review because it's in the downtown area or the height or the square footage. Some things, the design review just doesn't look at. So this particular one came in because it was in the downtown overlay district. And it's a little frustrating because, you can't talk about the height. And, by right, what was the zoning on that? Is that C-17 or what was that?
Downtown Coeur.
What's that?
Downtown core.
Yeah, and the height of that building
You
could
can,
have
you
been,
can go over 200 feet.
so,
bonuses.
and it isn't, but still. And it's, yeah, changing the guidelines of the design review might be one of the things we need to do so this doesn't come up again.
So
at some point.
let me just, from the legal standpoint, the Design Review Commission is not a requirement of state law.
Mhm.
It was created by city council. The design criteria and standards were adopted by city council. This is all a creature of council's imagination, if you will. They can change it. You can make recommendations for changing it, but it comes down to this is a creature created by the city council, and they've decided how it should act.
Right. And it's, the city council could disband the design review commission if they wanted to.
There has been talk about that.
Right, which is certainly up to the city council if that's what they want to do. But, I'm all for kind of public testimony in any appeal process, but I think this is right in the midstream of a process that started and there's appeal. And I agree they should follow the exact rules. Maybe if this came back at a different time,
Well, can I
that
make
would
a
be
motion
fine.
that we can
Go right ahead.
discuss the motion?
Mr. Chair, though, before you do, I'd like to say that this design review is very unique, and I suspect, I believe, I know, it was generated by public input to the council. So the council was listening to public input. I think the design review, I was flabbergasted and overjoyed when the city passed that. I think it is a neat, vital, important operation. So my criticism of some of this is not criticism of you all or the design review, it's criticism of that guy over there. But, I just, I firmly believe in public input, but it should be recognized that design review is a unique operation, and it might have a lot of faults, but by God, there's nothing like it.
Okay, let's, go ahead, make a motion.
I think we're all doing the best with what we got, but I think we all, would agree there's some room for maybe improvement, and so maybe this is just a small step towards that. I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance number, well, I guess it doesn't have a number on it, Council Bill number 19-1005 with the description of the hearing, with one change, the description of the hearing to reflect a similar description to the appeal process for the planning commission hearings so that they're consistent. And I guess I would also recommend that it is applied to future hearings, and just like the people that appealed right now, that they are completing their appeal with the process they started it with.
So are you making a motion that
With the one change, and then that it applies for future hearings.
not the present hearing of the appeal, that?
The present hearing tabled is completed with the process it was started with.
So is that, let me get this clear in my mind.
We can do that, though.
Yeah, well, let me get it clear that would the Marriott appeal have public hearing based on the motion that we had, or was your intent not to have the Marriott?
The intent is for a tabled hearing to be completed in the process it was started in.
Yes, it would be a recommendation to
Recommendation,
council, not approving the ordinance, and you can recommend whatever you would like. The city council may not go along with it.
That's fine.
So it's just the approval of what's before us? Or is it an
With the-
addition of something else?
The approval with what's before us, with the hearing verbiage being consistent to what a planning commission appeal would be. As far as they can take public comment, but they're not, it's gray, or equally consistent in its verbiage, so that the hearings are consistently written.
And I don't understand fully that addition, so I'm not
I
supporting
think
that.
Randy could probably pull it up and we can read it. I don't have it in front of me, so.
Don't want it read, I want it
Yeah, we can pull it up on the
discussed.
screen and I'd read it. I just don't have a easy way to access it right now. I just think it's important to be consistent.
It's Article 8 of Chapter 17.09, so 1709, 705.
I feel like if we're going to improve things, we should be improving our consistency. So
And
that
it
the
simply
public can
says
follow
that the
along.
city council shall hold a public hearing. In its review of the administrative appeal, the council should consider the purpose, intent, so on and so forth. It does not mention who, if anyone, can testify at the
Speak
public
or
hearing.
not.
So it'd be at their
It's
discretion.
too broad.
1709-715.
They tabled it and set a date for June 4th.
No, public comment, sorry. No more. Sorry. Sorry.
So this is the language on the screen, this item B. It doesn't even say who would.
They don't
Participate
talk
in the
about
hearing.
appellant or any of that.
Yeah, it would be at their discretion. I think that's fine.
Yeah, there should be one and the same.
I think they should be consistent.
Yeah.
So this is the language that applies for any decision by the planning commission or staff that gets appealed, is how this
Correct.
is
I think
currently
that
written.
keeping the appeal decisions, regardless of type, consistent, I think is
I would
important.
agree. If you're gonna do it, align
And
them.
my understanding is the hearing is tabled with a date of June 4th. Is that correct? You'd have to remember. I guess, so that would just be a recommendation, but, yeah. So I would, yeah, the verbiage right there on the screen would be perfect.
Okay, I have a motion by McCracken.
Mr. Chair,
Any
could we
further
have a
discussion
restatement of
or
the
dis-
motion? Could the clerk give us a restatement of the motion? Do you have that?
I could read it again now that I have it in front of me if you want.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
I motion to approve Council Bill number 19-1005 with replacing Section C with the following statement. Is it B? It's B on that one, right? The city council action, the city council shall hold a public hearing in its review of administrative appeal. The council, I'm sorry.
Shall
I'm not a very good
consider
seer.
the
The council shall
purpose.
consider the purpose and intent of, as well as the language and the pertinent provisions, and shall affirm with conditions to modify or reverse the determination or interpretation within 40 days of the hearing. I guess we don't have the dates in here.
So there's no changes what is in front of us?
The change is striking paragraph C and making it consistent.
Striking paragraph C in its
Get rid of it
entirety?
entirely, so you're not identifying.
But this is going to be,
Yeah.
Marriott's going to have public testimony.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This would then occur before the Marriott appeal, is that right?
this is going before council next week with your recommendation, so they can do
They
with it
can
what they
choose it
will.
or not.
If your recommendation says that you're supportive of this with that change, but that you recommend it would apply to appeal hearings that would be after that one and allow that one to take place with the current code provisions.
Because the appeal is scheduled when again? At city?
June 4th is the
And
date,
this goes to the council when?
May 21st.
Okay.
Feels like we're tailoring it to suit shutting out Marriott. That's what bothers me here. It's very, again, targeted. And so the
Well, I
timing
think
is
we can only
unfortunate.
we can only recommend that when they decide, but I think my point would be that it's consistent with the appeal.
And I kind
For the
of,
planning commission.
I'd say
I
table. I'd say
understand
not
what
to-
you're saying about
Wouldn't do it right
changing
now.
this particular code, but
Not now.
again, and I think it's in midstream. I can't support this particular motion, not to change, but I'm going to have to vote, I'm going to vote against this particular thing. If it came back and it was in the middle of an appeal, I might have a different opinion
We can
of
only
it.
recommend that.
But no, so that's my opinion, so I'm going to bring it to a roll call at this time.
Can I make
Go
one
ahead.
more comment? My position is, I'm not in favor of striking this. If the council in their wisdom wants to do this, and they're before us because it's in the code that has to be considered by us, I would like to follow the council's wishes and desires. They're the ones that pay the price for poor decisions and good decisions, and I trust them. Thank you.
Roll call.
Did we have a second?
I think you had a comment.
Who had
Mr.
a
Chairman, is there a
comment?
second?
We need a second.
Mark, did you have a
Anyone
comment?
a second?
Hold on, let him think, yeah, hold on. Not roll call yet, Mark is,
I'm challenged with understanding the purpose behind this specific effort and the validity of what council does with it. Because really, it's just a recommendation. They can take it or not take it. My concern is it's a broader issue in terms of how the public interfaces with the commissioners and the mayor and how they're able to use the public's ideas to better represent and govern. In this case, it might be Marriott. In another case, it might be Kaufman's Estates. Whatever those things are, I don't know if whatever we vote tonight is going to have any effect on that purpose. And so with that in mind, I'm going to say nay, just because I don't think this really has any valid purpose that has utility that's going to go forward, so.
and I think changing the code for public input is a great thing, but at this moment in time, I agree with you that since this was brought up at city council because of an item of appeal that came up and there was no public input under the guidelines, city council had a discussion and they decided to change in midstream. Okay, wait a minute, we need public input on this particular appeal. I think public input is great. As I stated before, perhaps if this came back at a different time and date where this particular appeal wasn't going to be affected, fine and dandy, if they want to change code. But at this particular point in time, that's my feeling.
So does it die for lack of a second?
No, I'm not saying it is. We haven't gotten a second yet. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to second the motion, but
Okay.
vote against it.
Wait,
The reason I'm going to
wait,
second
wait,
it is
you-
because
you-
I think it's very important that we have a motion, we have votes.
Well, you're seconding?
Yes, I'm seconding it.
You're seconding the emotion. The motion is to make the recommendation to change the code, but you're going to say no.
But I'm going to vote against it, yes.
Okay.
That might sound screwy, but I believe
Okay.
it's very
me
important when
crack
a
my
motion
neck.
comes before us, that we
Okay.
consider the motion
All right,
as
so-
opposed to letting it die for lack of a second.
Spin.
Okay.
I was
we
just trying to find a middle ground.
All
Somewhere in there for you
right,
guys.
so
Try.
we have a first by McCracken, a second by Lutrip. Roll call. This is a roll call, yes in favor, no of not in favor of,
Handing us on.
okay, roll call.
Fleming,
No.
Coppice,
No.
McCracken,
No.
Lutrip,
Yeah, no,
Ward,
No.
Messina.
No. The recommendation to the city council is the amendment to
No,
code.
the motion fails, so there is no
Motion fails.
recommendation. We need
There's no
another motion.
recommendation. Yeah.
No, okay, motion fails and there's no recommendation to city council concerning municipal code 17.09.
No.
No?
There can still be another motion
Oh, okay.
to approve it as written or approve it with another
Okay.
change. State law says you have to make a recommendation,
You can
Okay.
also recommend no change if you
or you
don't
could recommend no change to the
like
ordinance.
changes.
Okay,
But
so,
but you can go with substitute motions or continuing motions until we get one that passes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve this bill, this recommendation to the city council as originally written.
I'll second that. Oh,
okay,
Coke.
hold on, what's your motion?
Not to change it. No red lines, just as is.
We are asked to
Just the way it is.
give our recommendation to council, and I think our,
I think Commissioner Lutrip's motion is to adopt or recommend the adoption of the ordinance as, amended ordinance as presented.
that's right, I wish I was an attorney, very well stated.
And that's what I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Luthrop, second by Ward. Okay. Roll call.
Fleming,
Yes.
Coppice,
Nope.
McCracken,
No.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Messina.
No. Okay,
Oh,
so
could I?
Paper, rock, scissors.
Paper, rock, scissors?
that motion fails.
Well, let's just,
I'll make a
Why in
motion.
the world would
I can make a motion, can I? I'd like to make a motion to not recommend this change to the municipal code 17.09.34. And not recommend it, not recommending the change at this point.
just all the black words
Um,
stay the same.
No changes
No
whatsoever.
change, no red lines, no markouts, no strikeouts. I'll say yes to that.
Okay,
Second that.
I have a first by
Leave it
Messina.
as is.
A second by Fleming. All in favor of the motion not to make any changes to
Chairman,
the
we need a
city
roll
code, to the
call.
municipal code?
You need to do roll call.
Roll call.
Yeah, roll call.
Fleming,
Yes.
Coppice,
No.
McCracken,
No.
Lutrip,
No.
Ward,
Yes.
Messina.
Yes. Motion does not pass. So, we need another motion to either
Can I try one?
go right ahead.
Please,
Move we
please.
approve the ordinance as written with revision that it not apply to any current pending appeal.
I second that motion. Roll call.
Do we want any discussion before we?
We
or
want
just
to have
gonna
a
keep
discussion?
going?
Sure, all right.
Tired.
We have a discussion. We
Well,
have a
I mean,
discussion.
we're not agreeing, so I'm thinking maybe we need to.
Discussion. We can have discussion. Go ahead.
The only discussion is how you're gonna cut this so we get one more vote, you know?
Well, I just want to know, I mean, is there
We
something
have,
that we can
we have a
agree on
motion
tonight?
right now to approve the changes, but not
Not to be
Any,
affecting any current projects.
Not be apply any current.
any current appeals.
Yeah.
So that's the motion. Let's have discussion.
That's the speed limit one, that's a good motion, yeah.
More discussion?
My wife thought of that.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Fleming,
Yes.
Coppice.
No.
McCracken,
No.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Messina.
Yes.
Solar flares,
All right.
that's the problem.
Motion passes with the exception of any present appeals. Is that good?
Yes. Can
All
I
right.
make a motion?
Motion,
Mr. Chair-
motion to adjourn.
No, before you do that, I'd like
Oh.
to speak to that motion.
Okay.
I'd like to
Sure.
comment on how you handled us this whole meeting. I thought it was exemplary. I
You're
mean,
talking
we
to
had-
Sarah?
I'm talking to you, I'm talking to, well, I talked to her too, but I'm not, talking about the initial part, the first item before us, and then the second one, you did, it's difficult, it was, not difficult, it's challenging, it was different, you did a very good job, and when you're up for reelection, if it ever comes up, I thought that we did it every year, you're certainly gonna get my vote again.
Well,
Maybe two of them.
Well, thank you very much, but it's not just me, it's all of us that have great input, and I rely on that very heavily, because a lot of times I don't ask questions, because you guys always ask the questions beforehand. But
You do a good job,
you
Tom.
guys do a great job. Thank you.
Motion
So,
to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Fleming, second by McCracken. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Sarah,